I noticed Alex Jaffe's books are kind of stood up sort of nicely now. Somebody got mad at me. They sent me a message saying that it was mean of me to make fun of your shelves. They're like, I stacked my books up on top of each other and it's fine. And I'm like, man, you didn't see it.
Yeah,
okay?
It was a mess.
No, this is not a stacked situation.
Yeah, it did not look
chaos.
nice. Tim was being nice about how messy my bookshelf was.
There's nothing wrong with stacking books on top of each other. Like, I don't think you know.
Oh no, it was a disaster. There's like open papers out there.
So I'm responding to that guy's Discord DM by saying, you didn't have your eyes on. We did.
I needed that intervention.
Hello and welcome back to Video Games. Tim Rogers here with
not this week. I'm taking it back. You had one episode. It's my turn.
I'm hosting again.
You are not. It's
By
me.
popular demand, Frank has requested me to host again.
This is Alex Jaffe, host of the Insert Credit audio magazine. It's issue 235.
325. He got the number wrong.
He got the number one.
Demands a quo, and he got the number
right.
one.
I bet Tim would have gotten it right. That's why I nominated him.
I did get it right, actually.
This is issue 325 of Insert Credit, our Game of the Year edition. As we do around every Valentine's Day, our panel of video game experts will take turns nominating their favorite games of the previous calendar year and collaborate on a ranked order of the titles as we go. I'm Alex Jaffe, and I have to leave in, I'd say, 3.5 hours.
I'm Tim Rogers, and I have to leave in, you know what? I'm going to say 4 hours. I got about 4 hours here. I can do this.
I'm Brandon Sheffield, and I probably have to leave in I think I could also do 4. I'll say 4.
I'm Frank Cifaldi, and currently I have to leave in 26 minutes.
Whoa! Shoot! Okay, I have an idea. I think what we're going to do, Frank, is we're going to do all of your games first. You picked 7 games, right?
Yes. 7 games.
We'll do as many as you've prepared, and let's have a friend fill out the rest. Why don't we call Kris Graft? Kris Graft, are you here on the call?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Kris Graft is here.
Hi, Kris. How long can you hang out?
I got a solid 4 minutes in me, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll make it work. So the way we usually do this is we rotate amongst our panel to talk about the games they were impressed by this year for about 4 minutes, ideally, before we figure out a place to rank them.
Yeah, good luck.
But I think we're going to front load all of Frank's right now. Frank, what are the good games you played this year?
All
good games, good games.
So since I just go in any order I want, I guess, since it's my time to shine.
Yeah, flop them out.
Well, actually, as we discussed last episode, I believe this made it into the final cut. The process tends to be that Frank looks at a Steam list and comes up with the exact number of games that he played that came out in the previous calendar year.
Yeah.
That happened, and I came up with exactly 2. The reason I look at Steam is because I don't own consoles.
And I just wanted to say that I said before the show that the kids would refer to that not owning consoles and only having played 2 modern games. The kids would refer to that as Giga Chad behavior.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like I just huge muscles on me. Yeah. So this morning I woke up just like bolted out of like that Simpsons, like classic Simpsons where they just kind of like sit up in bed and scream. You know, that happened to me, and I realized that I did have a third game because as eagle-eared listeners of this audio magazine know, I borrowed a console last year and purchased a game. So I do actually, in fact, now have 3. So let's start with that one. That game was Spider-Man 2.
Oh,
Spider-Man 2.
No,
Spider-Man 2. I was really excited for this game because I quite enjoyed the first one. And I just kept thinking as I played it, this is cool. The sequel is going to be the real one. Like that was kind of the thought the whole time. Like it was just a little bit rough and there was some fluff and like it just felt like, you know, this is the prototype of the real one. I don't know if I'd go that far with 2. It didn't feel like a dramatically different experience, but it felt like a much smoother version.
Yeah.
The side missions actually felt more substantial. The travel was a lot more fun. The addition of the, I don't know what they're called, web wings or whatever, the gliding was great. And continues to make these Spider-Man games into the fourth Arkham that we'll never get. That just died forever as we're recording this a few days ago, I believe. The idea of a fourth Arkham.
Yeah.
Real shame.
They really killed the Justice League on that one.
It really did. And what else? I find their writing to be really polished and like heartfelt. Like there's a lot of heart in these Spider-Man games, which I really appreciate. I don't think this had as much heart for me as Miles Morales did. That one touched me quite a bit more.
Miles Morales felt like it was really about stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. This was more about Spider-Man.
About
stuff.
About fun. About fun. Yeah.
But great game. Had a good time with it. I think it should be on the top of the list.
So
Well, I think it should be on the bottom of the list. But we're both
We'll
right.
go ahead and put it on the top for now. With this my moderation here. So I think this game's cool.
I do have a question about this game, and it's in what variety of size can Spider-Man spin a web in this game?
Oh, any size.
Oh, yeah, Game of the Year then.
Yeah.
Well, can you actually spin really big webs yet? Well, maybe in Spider-Man 3. That's going to be the real one. So I think one neat thing is, these are first-party games, which is neat. It's always nice to see. There's still, I tend to keep my finger a little bit more on the pulse of the big, giant budget AAA first-party games than with, even movies these days. Me and Alex Jaffe just went and watched the Aquaman movie 2 days ago. And there were parts during the fights. Okay, first of all, I really hated it. We had a good time, but I
thought it came out like 2 months ago.
It did. We saw it on the last possible day to see it in the theaters, which is $7 Movie Tuesday. There were many, many moments during the battles where I recalled good old Roger Ebert's his witticism of a criticism that he could not stop trotting out toward the end of his career. He would describe action in such and such films as looking like watching someone else play a video game, right? And it was really mean of him to put it that way because he hated video games. And number two, Twitch didn't exist yet, and watching people play video games was not like a thing people actually.
He really liked Mortal Kombat, by the way.
The original Mortal Kombat movie.
They got 2 thumbs ups.
It got 2 thumbs ups. Yeah. So it's watching that Aquaman movie. I was like, I would much rather be playing basically any AAA video game than watching some of those things. And I had this realization. It was God of War Valhalla I was thinking of. I was like, you know what? AAA video games are better than action movies these days. They're officially more entertaining. Think the same exact thing of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. It's a popcorn video game,
Yeah.
We don't have. I keep talking about dinner time video games. Kickstart GLYDR if you were interested in dinner time video games as I am, and also this is a popcorn video game. They go down easy. A nice sort of companion to the other AAA first party games Sony does. You got your more serious Zelda-like, Dark Souls-like God of War. You got your more open worldy Horizons, and then you've got your sort of morose Sam Peckinpah fan fiction with fungus zombies and girls killing each other. Right, you got all of those, right? So it's a nice little flavor on the plate, as it were. And so I give Marvel's Spider-Man 2 one big thumbs up from me, Kyle. So
I also want to add that it's not just that it plays like the Arkham games. It does the thing that Arkham did that I really like, which is that you don't need to like ramp up to learning who these characters are. It's like you have a fundamental understanding of Spider-Man and the bad guys, and you're good. And I think that I actually like Arkham and this game just make me appreciate making games around IP that we already know. I don't know, how many of those would actually work, but I actually really like that I already connect with these characters going in. I don't have to learn to like new characters.
Yeah, I think that was the big problem for me with the last one of these, where
Miles Morales.
I think I mentioned this, but they just assumed my understanding and appreciation of all of these characters, and they were like, "Oh, but it's Vulture, and he's doing this." And I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
He's a Spider-Man villain. But yeah,
I know it's a Spider-Man.
It's Michael Keaton.
That I inferred.
Old guy.
I figured that out. And I actually know what he looks like.
Played by Michael Keaton in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which means
That's
Michael
right.
Keaton's played Batman, Birdman, and Vulture.
Which is cool.
We call that range in drama school.
The level of understanding that was assumed was quite was quite high. So I didn't play this one. I didn't play it.
All right.
I have it, but I didn't play it because I didn't want to.
I can say conclusively it's the best one of these so far.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try it later.
I liked Insomniac's Ratchet and Clank comeback game, but it kind of felt a little cotton candy. It didn't feel, whereas this feels like popcorn. So if it comes down to popcorn versus cotton candy, well, cotton candy's not vegetarian and popcorn is.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, .wave. Do we have that one
Frank?
here? Hold on. Do we have that one here?
Thank you.
Okay. There. That's good. Thank you, Spider-Man.
Kris, you got anything to add here?
Got anything to say about Spider-Man 2?
No, I don't got much to say about Spider-Man 2. I think it's interesting, though, like you talking about having to learn to appreciate and, fall in love with a new character. And that's kind of built in with these huge franchises. I mean, that's what the whole end game, thing was about. Like the storytelling that the Russo brothers did. It's like you really care at the very, very, very end when Iron Man, dies. Spoilers.
Yeah, Iron Man died 6 years ago. We can talk about it now.
Because he was introduced almost 15, 16 years earlier, and you get to know him. And also they talk about, I remember Telltale talking about that in their games, that there's no substitute for spending a whole lot of time
off a beloved character.
With a character. Yeah. So it's unusual when you're able to, and good job if you're doing a video game, brand new IP, brand new characters, and you make somebody really, really care about it, because there's no substitute for time.
Speaking of having no substitute for time, Frank, what's your next game?
So I'll do what's probably my quickest one, because I kind of assume I'm the only one who played this. This is a game called Small Saga.
Small Saga.
This is a pixely, it's smallsaga.com for those who haven't.
Is it a ZX Spectrum game?
No, it is a Windows PC game. It is a pixel-based, very, very beautiful pixel-based.
Beautiful, beautiful pixels.
I guess, I don't know. Do we still say JRPG? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
I think it's all right.
It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it stands for Jolly Role Playing Game.
Oh yeah, it's the Mice with Knives.
Yeah,
game.
it's the Mice with Knives games. Yeah. It's about you're a mouse with a switchblade, and that's all you really need to know. But it's
I wanted to play that.
I think you would enjoy it. The time to complete it is 8-ish hours, and that's with doing everything, which is wonderful.
It's tasty.
As you're seeing, the art is just really nice to look at. Soundtrack's really good too. It's really well written. It's kind of interesting because honestly, it's not much of a game. There's not much. There's really no challenge. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of friction. It's almost like
I'm fine with that.
It is a short story told through the language of a JRPG. Now, normally I kind of don't like that because it just feels like I'm cruising, but it just skirts that line enough where I feel engaged the whole time. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm driving the car here. I'm not just a passenger. But the fights are practically scripted to be exactly engaging. You can't just sleep on them. You can't just hit attack over and over.
Yeah.
Because there's no possibility of grinding, for example, in this game. It's very scripted. You are this level when you get to this part. You know what I mean? So it's kind of neat as a piece of, it's basically just storytelling that you drive through that language of RPG, which I really like. And I don't know. I think I'd recommend this to basically anyone. It's got a really fun story.
Yeah, I'd smoke this. I meant to play this, and then I did not.
Me too. Totally forgot.
Well, I didn't forget. It was $20.
I didn't realize it came out was the problem.
It was $20 and it wasn't on sale during the Steam sale. And I sound like a jerk for this, but when you refuse to get games for free, as I do, I've ended up thinking about sale prices on stuff. So that's why I didn't.
Well, when you play 3 brand new games a year, you kind of don't.
Oh, you choose which ones you play. Yeah, so you choose them.
Would you rank it above or below Spider-Man 2, Frank?
I got to put it below Spider-Man 2. I don't know. It's a nice diversion, but it's not a game of the year.
Feels like more of an insert credit game though to me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a recommendation for you, Frank, and I'm going to post it in the chat because I'll be talking about it later. I just posted it in the chat. You should get this and play this because you'll like it. This is a game I'm going to be talking about later on this episode of the show.
Okay. Even though
you're spoiling what it is for the people who are listening to the episode.
I cut that out.
Censor, just beep it out. It's good. It's good.
We'll talk about this later. Yeah.
Okay. We're all good below Spider-Man?
Yes,
why not?
I think so.
Yeah,
All right.
Sure.
Yeah, keep the big one on top.
So my last one, I guess I'm just taking the big one here, would be Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Never heard of it.
baby.
No? Okay.
Never heard of it.
I just feel like all I have to say is that's this year's Elden Ring, and then drop the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like that's
Yeah.
what it is. It is a game that doesn't hold your hand, that you really kind of have to learn to be literate in quickly to get on board. Like it kind of demands that you Google how to do things, you know, and people love it anyway, and it's kind of surprising.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what's happened in the Elden Ringo sphere over the past, years since Dark Souls is people have gotten very, very good at talking to each other about the video games they're playing.
Yeah.
Casually and in communities online and whatnot. So it was prime time. This game came out. I recorded a full playthrough of myself playing this game with my microphone on, by the way, that maybe people who have paid me money will be allowed to watch all of if they're weird enough. But I said very early, I was like, wow, this game is... I loved Baldur's Gate 1, I loved Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale, I played Neverwinter Nights, right? I liked all those games. And I'm just playing this one and I'm like, oh, this is the one that can prove to just an idiot that these games are the best, right? Like I had this hunch when I was originally playing Baldur's Gate 2, this hunch, maybe this kind of game is the best. And then Baldur's Gate 3 kind of fills in and fleshes out all the stuff that kind of eliminates the maybe. And it's like, oh, this is kind of the best sort of thing to do with some free time.
You want to hear another way in which it's the Elden Ring of
Because
this year?
you didn't like it.
No,
is that it?
It's not that.
You didn't play it,
but it's peripheral to it. It is that I played it for several hours and I thought it was all right. It just didn't grab me.
Didn't grab you. Yeah,
I understood why people could be grabbed by it. But it just didn't get its teeth in there. And I was kind of surprised because I went into it ready to play. I was like, okay, this is my Dragon Age. I can do one Western RPG every 10 years.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. Dragon Age, those games are for troglodytes.
Well,
they're for Cro-Magnons. No offense.
They're dramatically simpler compared to this.
Yeah, that's true.
The D&D-ification is much stronger and more palpable in the Baldur's Gates.
Well, I mean, it's not strong. I mean, it is D&D.
It is.
It is D&D.
Yeah.
This is actually baby's first D&D.
Yeah.
So me, a person who will not go outside, stop asking. It is D&D for me. I'm not going to your house to play D&D, Carl.
I've done real life D&D, but
don't. Come on.
It was good, but I didn't. It just didn't affect me.
Brandon, whoever invited you to D&D was hoping you wouldn't show up. Like, no offense.
They loved it.
What I really like about this Baldur's Gate 3 is after being a guy who made a 10-hour long video review of Cyberpunk 2077, in which I forced myself to capture every story possibility, it was an hour and 12 minutes when I completely gave up in Baldur's Gate 3 and was like, you know what? Dice is God, baby. The dice is God.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let whatever happens is going to happen.
Yeah, let it ride.
I'm not going to reload my Fire Emblem save because my guy died. Not going to do any of it.
I did give up as well on that.
Yeah, it's just, it's.
I think that's one thing that if you're not used to this type of game, that you're used to more, maybe at this point called like traditional like CRPG games.
Yeah.
That you don't like really understand that this is as close as you're going to get in a video game to having an actual DM. So like
the narrator.
Yeah. That's your DM. And in the dialogue options in particular, like what you might do if you're playing Skyrim, you might go through a conversation. You might go through like, oh, use all of those up. And then make sure you don't miss any information. With Baldur's Gate 3, like most of the time it's like you pick something and then it just like, okay, now we're doing, let's ride. Yeah, let's keep on going this way.
Chris Graft, I remember on this very show, you once talking to Brandon about Civilization. Do you remember what you said? Because I've quoted this. I've quoted this in lectures.
Oh, really? I remember talking about GTA, a GTA theme park with a roller coaster shaped like a gun, but I don't remember Civilization.
Shaped like a gat, you said. Or shaped like a Glock. Sorry, you said shaped like a Glock. And that, as the kids say, that sent me. Okay. So, but no, you were telling Brandon, because Brandon was like, I can't play those Civilization games. There's too much going on, too many decisions to make. Brandon said the decisions are too interesting. Paraphrasing, expertly paraphrasing Sid Meier, throwing it back in his face. And you told Brandon that the key to playing Civilization was to just make the choices and just let it ride. And to not agonize over any of them. And I'm like, oh, that's how I've always played those games. I've never heard it need to be explained to someone before. Like, there was a therapist-esque tone to your voice, the way you explained it, Kris Graft. But it was like, you explained, you're like, you just have to not worry about it. I
think Baldur's Gate did a pretty good job. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 did a pretty good job of that with this one, because like, where I was reloading my save because I was stuck in that brain zone was at that
brain zone sucks. I love it.
really early door where there's a lockpick and you can get into this cool area.
And then you failed the lockpick check.
And I failed it and I reloaded it a bunch of times. And then I got in there and the guys that were in there were way higher level than me.
Way too powerful.
I was like, all right, okay, fine, game. You're right. I won't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know where I gave up is my character had low strength because I'm a ranger. My character had low strength, and there's like the portal on the beach where the wizard is sticking his hand out. I was like, help me, I'm trapped in here. And I'm like, I go to pull. I'm like, all right, I'll help this guy because I maybe I would in real life. I'm Tom Cruise in that indoctrination video.
Pulled him out of there.
I know I can help. I know I see somebody in trouble. I go there, I roll the dice. It's like a D20, or it's not a D20. It's like I need like a 20.
It's a really low one.
But my character
to get him out.
My character has like no strength, and I missed it. And I'm like, oh, I know I'm supposed to be able to do this. I'm going to roll it again, and then missed it again. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it again. Let's try it. Let's do this again. And I roll it again, and missed a third time. And the guy goes, oh God! And then he slips into the void, and he's by all accounts. It's up to the viewer's imagination, and I won't spoil anything, but he's dead, right? I let this guy die.
Get lopped off. It gets lopped off. Like
I let this guy die.
That'd be good.
I think it does happen. Yeah.
I wonder if you had it better or worse than me, because I did save him, and then we had a quiet moment of bonding later by the campfire where I'd said something that I thought was nice that he misconstrued as being romantic, and he was very excited. And then I just never followed up with him, and he just kind of followed me around doughy-eyed for the rest of the game, and I kind of feel bad about that.
He's a hound, I'm telling you.
I roasted that guy in the character creator. I was like, this guy looks like he has a podcast about hats. Or something like he's like the most gamery looking dude. It's like I always when I'm offered the opportunity to create a character, I have never made a character that looks anything like me, and I understand that's privilege. But I'm looking at that guy and I'm like, that guy looks like how I feel like I look.
His name is Gale. It's like his perfect name for him too.
Did anybody else ghost the sex elf? Astarion specifically.
Oh, yeah.
We have a personality misalignment.
Verbally kicking that guy in the nuts is a god darn professional sport in this house.
I just got rid of him right away.
Frank, before you have to go, would you rank this above Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, I think this is probably game of the year.
Oh, yeah. If Frank said no, he would be permanently banned from being on this show forever.
I didn't have to ghost Astarion or deal with Astarion because
you killed him.
No, I played as him because I went through the default characters and I'm like, I kind of want to be a sneaky guy. Yeah. But I don't think that's in the spirit of the game. I think you're supposed to make your own character and have these companions. And
pre-made characters are like a normal thing.
I know, but I feel like I didn't meet this character. That seems to be like an experience a lot of people have.
Your meeting with him kind of sucks, though.
Yeah.
And I ended up not role-playing as him.
You were Pagliacci.
Because I was just like a nice vampire.
Yeah, you wouldn't have wanted to.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think I did it right. And if I play this game again, I'll start over.
He kept on disapproving things that I would choose to do that are like within my basic value system. So send back to camp.
Yeah, but I still had that with like Lae'zel,
He's written that way.
You're still a jerk or whatever, Moonshine or whatever her name is. I don't remember.
Moonshine.
Moonshadow.
I just learned today while looking at Twitter because someone had posted about the Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 or Final Fantasy VII 3, as us in the know call it. Someone had just posted about the demo saying Tifa's so hot, dude. And someone had replied to it with, not as hot as any of the girls in Baldur's Gate 3.
Whoa.
And then what?
Yeah.
And then attached to that tweet was a video clip of just a montage of moments with their favorite female characters from throughout what I imagine was a full playthrough.
Wow, they were prepared for this. Wow.
And they was buck naked in the whole thing, which is you can take clothes off. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. So
I saw my wiener in that
you
game.
can't actually. One of the first things I did is as soon as I recruited a companion, I swapped underwear with them. I decided that was really important to me that I switch underwear.
Yeah, that's a character building moment.
Yeah.
Me and Brandon, I know Brandon back
So
in the
you
day.
were role playing as Astarion.
Hey!
Brandon would never admit this, but me and him, the first time we met, we bonded over the fact that our first Google search ever was Tomb Raider nude code. So we fought for this, and we fought for this. This is what we've wanted. You can just make the girls naked in Baldur's Gate 3 through the menu.
No code
on the
required.
PlayStation 2. You just press a couple of buttons to take their clothes off. It did not occur to me. That's how good that game was.
Thank you.
So it was good enough that I didn't even think, I don't want to see any of these people with no clothes on.
My first Google search was Super Saiyan 5 Goku and seeing a bunch of fan art.
Wow.
Super Saiyan 5 Goku nude code?
No, I just wanted to see what it would look like.
All right,
And,
before I go, is it top of the list? That we
Top of the
I
list.
put it-
Yeah?
No,
Yeah,
you'd be banned forever if you didn't recommend putting it at the top of the
It's
list.
my game of the year. Just like
Yeah.
Elden Ring was last year.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
All
This
right.
year's Elden Ring.
All right.
Sorry,
gotta get a
Brandon.
new podcast.
So, Chris Graft, would you say that it sounds like Brandon has had at the least a breakthrough with regard to his ability to play what he said about Baldur's Gate 3 about not really minding the decisions being locked and final?
I don't know if Brandon has had a breakthrough, but I think that he already knows what his problem is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
That's the most important thing.
But like with Baldur's Gate, that's what I tell people, and it happened to me also when I was trying to like let it get its hooks in me. I started over, and then that's where I just had to the most basic things you can do is just try to uncover the map. Let the dialogue options flow, and just stay out of places that you obviously aren't ready to go to. Like it's naturally gated, but it's not like a Metroidvania that's gonna be like you need the special laser wand. It's just gonna be like a soft push or a hard push back. Just don't try to do stuff you're not ready for. A lot of life lessons that you can learn from Baldur's Gate, I think.
Thanks, Dr. Graft.
Also, one thing you could do is just play it once. You don't need to play it 5 times, 6 times, 9 times, 12 times to get all the stuff. You just play it once, and then then you create a user's story.
Yeah.
All right, let's let Frank exit. Let's stop talking.
Yeah.
please.
Bye, Frank. We're going to keep
We're
talking
not
about
gonna
Baldur's
stop
Gate.
talking. We're going to talk for another 3 hours.
All right, you have fun with that. But
All right.
Bye, Frank.
Bye, Frank.
Thanks for
Now-
having
Bye,
me
Frank.
as a
Good
guest on the
seeing you.
show.
Of course. Anytime you want to come,
right.
we'll work something out, depending
Cool.
on
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
scheduling.
Bye.
Goodbye.
All right. The one thing keeping me from playing Baldur's Gate 3 is the same thing that's keeping me from playing The Witcher 3 all these
Too many
years.
dames.
It's that is part of it. But mainly it's I'm burdened by the knowledge that there's all this stuff in 1 and 2 that I'm missing contextually.
Oh, no. Okay,
No,
so
you
let
have
me
to extra let go of that. Because
let me unburden you. Baldur's Gate is the name of a city, okay?
Yeah.
It's not the name of some, well, I mean, there's a little MacGuffinishness to it, but it's the name of a city,
Mhm.
right? So that's all you need to know. Imagine the Baldur's Gate series is the stories that take place in and around the environs of the city of Baldur's Gate, right?
Mhm.
So you don't have to worry about it. Imagine a TV series called Metropolis that doesn't require you to read about Superman to be an encyclopedia of Superman. Something like that.
Jeffy, what I would say is you're doing a campaign with a new dungeon master. Essentially, I mean, not that you play a lot of D&D, but like consider
used
this
to.
the Gary Gygax's 3rd edition instead of
Okay.
Yeah.
I can adjust myself accordingly then.
I play D&D now because of Baldur's Gate 3, by the way. That's my confession.
That's creepy as heck.
That's what it does.
Get out of here,
weird.
Chris Graft.
Why don't you go back and ride your Glock-shaped roller coaster? You used to be fun riding your Glock-shaped roller coaster. Now you're talking about board game nights.
Brandon, do you want to flop the next game on this list?
Sure. Considering what the last one was, and considering who I am and how I talk about video games, I think it would be funny for me to be the one to put this on the list.
You flop it out, Carlo.
I'm going to say Final Fantasy 16.
Oh, shoot.
Oh,
which
baby.
I think frequent listeners of the show would have predicted that I would not like.
Did you play it and like it?
I played it and liked it. I mean, that's why I'm putting it on the list.
I liked the whole thing.
Yeah, so-
even the awful parts.
Even the awful, well, I didn't like all the awful parts, but most of
Did
them.
you do any of those side quests that felt like chewing on rubber? That felt like chewing on a deflated
but-
balloon. I loved those, man.
Consider that I played through the entirety of God, what was it called? Before Crisis, the Critical Crisis. What was that PSP one?
Crisis Core.
Crisis Core. Yeah, which they recently remade. Yeah, so I played.
It's really nice, actually. That remaster remake.
I played
is
through
nice.
those Crisis Core side quests, and every one of those was the exact same thing, running down the same dang corridors. So I can handle it.
Like chewing on a softball-sized wad of deflated balloons.
Yeah, that someone already
Party
chewed
balloons.
on.
Saliva wet.
But so Final Fantasy 16, like big step up from 15. I could understand the story.
Oh yeah.
I could follow it.
Uh-huh.
I knew what was happening in
Mhm.
it. I didn't necessarily think it was fantastic, but I could like leave and come
It
back.
did have fantasy elements, though.
And remember where I was. I could understand who the characters were. So that was like big props to them for figuring that out.
It kind of unspools toward the end, though, doesn't it? Like when it becomes a very Final Fantasy-esque toward the end.
I didn't get to the end.
Oh, you didn't beat it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, I mean, no spoilers, but it becomes very Final Fantasy toward the end.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, though. I would expect it at that point, and I'd be like, fine, I'm already here.
Crystals and alien spaceships and alien sorcerers and whatnot, and it gets pretty weird.
I like how light and quick the sword attacks are. It just feels I like the breeziness of it, and the interaction with the magic system makes a lot of sense to me, and how you can kind of like, it's just like different buttons, basically.
Yeah, it's very much an action game, yeah.
Yeah, and it's, I guess my only complaints are I'm tired of sad sack protagonists, and I wish it were a little weirder. Like, it could have been a little weirder and also more innocent, because I feel like it's an M-rated game because they wanted to put the F word in there.
I think if you've played enough Final Fantasy 14, you know that there's this aspect of they want to put the F word in their game for meaningful reasons, I guess, and then I guess they end up doing it. But yeah, it does.
To me, it had that like I watched Game of Thrones kind of edginess.
Yeah, they all did, yeah.
Where they were like, yeah, now I'm going to make this sexy lady that looks exactly like the main character's mom.
Oh yeah, that was I thought that was his mom for the
I
first
thought it was
time I played the demo.
I had to look up whether that was not his mom.
Benedicta. I'm like, wait, is that his mom?
I thought Benedicta was his mom 100%.
Yeah, but then she's not.
And she's not. They could have made them look a little different.
How far did you get?
I only got about 10 hours in because
okay.
I have to preface this again with injured my hand, couldn't play games for 9 months out of last year. So
yeah, you're gonna get yourself one of those foot pedal controllers.
Almost none of these games did I complete, but I tried to get at least 5-6 hours in. I got further in this one.
So the thing about Final Fantasy 16 is if you've only played the demo, you might think it's the greatest video game of all time.
I didn't play the demo.
Well, okay. Well, you've played way past the demo, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the demo tricked a lot of people into thinking the whole game was going to be like that good. It's the part where the first Ifrit versus Phoenix fight is where it ends. It ends with Clive screaming "no" is how it ends, which is like, ooh, gotta find out what happens on the next episode. So it was like. That was cool.
I gotta say that fight was very annoying to me because they so clearly telegraphed what that actually was. To then have that be the quest was like, oh man, but I don't want to spoil it.
Icon fights or whatever they're called are really fun the second time you play the game. They're real Asher's Wrath kind of thing. I think ultimately the takeaway that is historic when historians finally start looking at Final Fantasy 16 for whatever reason, the takeaway is going to be that there's a kind of a blend of DNA in that game that you just would not expect anyone other than a Japanese video game developer who's been making the same series for 40 years to blend.
Yeah.
There's Dragon's Dogma, there's Ashura's Wrath, there's Devil May Cry, there's Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 6. You know, there's a whole bunch of little things and angles and stuff just kind of poking all out. It's a very prickly, weird, I'd say mid-range 7 out of 10 video game that is just somehow, by virtue of being so many weird big swings, by being willing to be controversial among, you know, the idiots who were, you know, there's idiots out there who are like, this game should be turn-based. Final Fantasy needs to be turn-based again, as people say. And it's like, Final Fantasy hasn't been turn-based since 1989, right? Like, there's been a little bit of real time to the combat ever since then. Or Final Fantasy 10, whatever. That's been 20 years, man. It's been 20 years, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the fact that they were willing to take big risks and such is kind of a thing. And also, if you play a little bit further, Brandon, you will start to notice that the protagonist is not really a sad guy.
Okay.
He's the whole story at a certain point becomes about community, about him being sort of a father figure for a community of people.
Building that town.
He's a real nice guy. He's a real nice, good man. He's a
I have
solid
two more
man.
small things to say about it.
Okay.
One is that on this show, people do often ask me what kind of a 3D action game feel I do like, because I complain about so many of them. And I would say this is pretty much it. It. Attacks are quick. The things that you can do are interesting. You don't have to do all of them, but when you do them, they are good, but they don't feel pointless because you had to actually do them. So
I would recommend to you that when Dragon's Dogma 2 comes out, put your spectacles on and maybe just like watch somebody play it. And maybe you can bend your mind toward that. Because because there's some Dragon's Dogma in Final Fantasy 16, literally, right? There's some guys. There's a guy, right? So it's a cosmic gumbo, as it were.
The one other thing I have to say is you remember in Seinfeld when George does a little jump and teens called him a Mary.
A Mary, yeah. They called me a Mary. I jumped over a puddle. I went like this.
What's this?
So the jump that Teen Clive does in the town.
I love Teen Clive.
During that game, I was like, that's the Mary jump.
So wait, are you at?
Brandon, you and I made that jump together accidentally, simultaneously in downtown San Francisco when we did that exact same jump.
Wow,
coordinated.
You're real Super Mary Brothers.
And it was over a stream of urine. Yeah.
As a tech bro was peeing in the middle of the sidewalk.
That's life in the big city.
Oh, also, what would you say about the main character's voice acting performance, Clive? You played it in English? You had to play it in English.
I did play it in English. I did.
It's the lead language. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil this. Would you say, Clive, the voice actor Ben Starr is very good? The answer, you would say yes, because he's listening right now. So just he listens to this show. So
yeah, I actually did. I did like his voice. I did think it was a little odd how many like different. It felt like they had a lot of different kinds of European voices they wanted, but they didn't have people from those countries doing those voices necessarily.
Yeah, weird, huh?
And it really weirded me out. Like Benedicta, was she supposed to be Irish-ish? Because she sometimes was, but the voice actress was Norwegian.
She wasn't Irish. She was Irish. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Irish indeed.
So wait, you got to adult Clive, right? You're at adult,
for sure.
But you're not at man Clive yet. So
yeah, maybe not.
There's another time skip where you become man Clive, where he's all grown up.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't gotten there.
The way the guy does 3 different characters is pretty good. Or he does 3 different stages of a man's life, right? It's kind of incredible that he did the voice acting
just like the Riddle of the Sphinx.
For the teenage version. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no,
exactly.
I've been defeated. How did you know?
Like the performance for the teen version is like, wow, is that a different voice actor? No.
Oh, it isn't?
It's not. It's the same guy.
Well, that's fun.
It's crazy, huh?
We're over time. Where are we ranking
All
it?
right, so anyway, I put this as number 1. I know nobody else will.
No, let's do it. Let's get weird.
Frank's not here to protest. Sure.
I love Baldur's Gate 3, but I'm willing to put Final Fantasy 16 over it because it's the most.
Let's get weird.
Just like
It's the most 7 out of 10 video game.
a second ago, we were just like, oh yeah, BG3 baby.
No, we're making this weird. It's I did a quick survey.
As soon as Frank leaves.
Did a quick survey before the podcast. I looked at some GOTY lists on some websites. Nobody put Final Fantasy 16 in like the top 30. So it has officially been criticized out of the top 25 of almost every.
Let the record show for Frank that I do not agree with this.
I saw someone say Final Fantasy 16 came out too early in the year. They should have released it later if they wanted awards. It came out in June, you moron. And second,
yeah, you idiot.
And second, video games take goddarn forever to play. They should come out in April. And second and third, the winner of the Game of the Year at the Game Awards, the average release date is April 18th. Just letting everyone know, if you average the release dates, it's April 18th, man.
Curious.
3 days after tax day.
That's when the game that wins the Game of the Year comes out on average. So if you're trying to figure out when to release your video game, release it in April.
You file your taxes and then you play the best video game of the year.
Exactly. Everyone gets their tax refund and buys Elden Ring or whatever, or Sekiro, or you know.
All right, Tim. Next game is yours.
So wait, let's get to it. You want to let Chris Graft go first?
Yeah.
Sure.
Here's the thing. I play a lot of video games. I think of myself. I don't know if this is correct or not. I think of myself as like a video game critic who like writes video game reviews of every video game that comes out for the local newspaper that exists only inside my head when I'm in my house on my sofa, right? I played everything that came out this year, paid for it too.
Are you like the paper boy?
I'm the paper boy for this newspaper as well, yeah.
Yes.
Extra, read all about it. Final Fantasy 16, Game of the Year.
I'll contribute to the list in a way that fits the texture of the episode. So I would like to make my first choice once I've had heard a choice by everybody else. So
okay, Chris Graft, time for your first choice / Frank's fourth choice by proxy.
Set the tone, KG.
Yeah. Well, you took Baldur's Gate 3 from me. It happened to be 33.3% of the games you played last year. All my stuff is controversial, even in my head.
Good.
Like,
it's not.
Mainly, it's only in my head.
Slam it down. You're on a podcast. This is the medium of Joe Rogan. You've got to just embrace your controversiality.
Okay, fine. I don't know if I even agree with this. If this is just a top 20,
yeah.
I'm gonna say Starfield.
Starfield.
So yeah. So
Die!
It's going to be fun to talk about.
Yeah, let's go.
God.
Okay, so
I played StarCraft. It was like eating a beach towel laced with saliva wet balloon. Starfield, same thing.
No, we're talking about StarCraft right now.
Starfield, same thing. I played Starfield. It was like
where are the Terrans?
It was like eating a beach towel with saliva wet, deflated party balloons, Elmer's glued to it at gunpoint.
Let's let Chris Graff say what he thinks of it.
Go ahead. Say what you think.
Okay.
Give us a reason not to veto this.
Say what you think you...
Not to veto this. I finished it. And by the end of it, I was
Is something wrong with you? Like, why? Why did you...
it was I played about 20 hours of it.
Were you going through like chemotherapy or something and you like needed something to keep your mind off the pain?
Jesus.
Or like what?
Aren't you glad we invited you onto the show, Chris Graff?
I just cannot conceive of any other reason.
Okay. So it's got tons of issues. So maybe we start there.
Sure.
You should say what you like about it.
Okay. But that's kind of how I get there. If I get all this stuff out of my head. Okay. So you start playing it and then you have these expectations. Skyrim in space is completely incorrect, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
It is like, there are nodes everywhere. And if you've read anything about Starfield, you know this. You node this.
I know it.
It's like you're not like doing the classic Todd Howard, thing where it's just like, yeah, you can see that mountain over there. It's way off there. You can actually get to the top of it. You can walk on top of it. That's not what is provided to you in Starfield. It's a lot of like you load, to get to the next place. It's like it takes out all of like even the ship exploration that you get in like No Man's Sky.
It is all loading screens.
Yeah, No Man's Sky is more of a Skyrim in space than Starfield.
I'm going to say No Man's Sky is better than any Bethesda RPG.
No Man's Sky is excellent. Hey, I love Skyrim, and I am after all nominating this for a top 20. Maybe it should be like hanging on the runway.
We're gonna kick that can all the way down to the end of the road as soon as we're done with this particular chunk here. We're gonna be can kickers.
I think this year, like, you just didn't have something like that. That you had something that you can just kind of honestly just turn your brain off, but also be kind of like have that like dose of escapism. Like, for example, Baldur's Gate 3, I'm hyper engaged in that. When I'm playing it, I'm there to play with.
My brain's on.
The way that I played Starfield was actually I played on the cloud, Xbox Cloud. So like So like
you're the ideal consumer.
So I had it on my Steam Deck with Microsoft Edge on there, and then it would load it to the cloud, and then I would play it at my PC and load it on the cloud, and then I could play it on my Xbox in my family room. And it was something that was so like, it worked so seamlessly and well, and it was convenient. And this game, like, design wise, like, there doesn't do like much obvious interesting new things, but it does give me like a checklist of things to do.
I realize what it is. It's you played it the way a Zoomer would look at TikTok. It's just something to do in different locations. So are you saying that Starfield is TikTok for boomers?
Zoomers are boomers.
That kind of explains Todd Howard's whole thing. You know what? We talk a lot about David Cage on this show. We talk a lot about how if he had existed a century earlier, he would have been Hitler, right? We say stuff like that, right? Like, we talk a lot about David Cage, but I think it's time to finally start, in the spirit of inclusivity, it's time to roll Todd Howard into those discussions.
Yeah.
Todd Howard's a hack. The guy's name is Todd. Like, come on. His name is Todd. Don't be named Todd.
I don't know. What about Todd McFarlane?
Todd McFarlane. The McFarlane is doing a lot of the work there because that's a cool sounding last name.
I got some things to say about Starfield and Friends.
Okay. Yeah, back on the Starfield.
I do as well, but go ahead.
It kind of goes off of what you were saying about the checklist thing, because this game didn't do it for me, but it's specifically because this is the kind of open world game that when I sit back for a second, makes me feel the most like I'm wasting time or doing digital chores, because the looting and becoming over encumbered cycle, like because of my personality type, where I need to collect the things. And I realize you can't collect everything because there's just a bunch of junk, but even the good things that you're supposed to collect, there's too much of it.
Yeah.
And
your NPC companion shames you when you like start picking up too much stuff. She's like, or he, or like whoever is just like, don't you think you're carrying enough crap
that is a
already?
God darn blood-colored flag right there, dude.
Yeah,
when your game has an internal mechanism for making fun of you for doing the thing they're like sort of
the game
forcing
is designed
you
for.
They're like forcing you subconsciously to do. Yeah, it's nonsense.
So this is the kind of game that makes me really sit back and think, what am I doing? Why do I even play video games? Because it was truly only compulsion that kept me going, not fun. It was like the compulsion loop. And so I played 5 hours or so, and I could have played more. I could have played it to completion. I could have played it for 100 hours. But I think actually mostly because I had to keep playing games in preparation for this podcast, I was like, I'm not going to have any fun. And this is like, it's work.
I'm not going to have any fun because I'm committed to the Lord.
I felt like I was personally mining Bitcoin, basically.
Oh my God.
There are components of the story and the characters that I wish that it like more, stuff happened, like bigger, more significant things seem to happen.
Yeah.
But it was easier to follow.
If I can be your editor for a second, you said you wish
comfort food. It was a comfort food video.
You wish more stuff happened. Let me go ahead and rephrase the phrase. Let me a little red ink here. Instead of the phrase more stuff, I'm going to editor in chief you here. Instead of more stuff, why not try to change that to something at all? like I wish something at all would happen. I know that's actually not awkward phrasing. It works. English flows. So I've come around in the past couple of minutes. I'm a huge fan of having this game not vetoed on the list at the bottom of the list. I want to kick this can to the bottom of the barrel. I'm a barrel bottom boy, through and through. And my favorite thing about Starfield, if you've seen the Nakey Jakey video about Starfield, it was a very good video he did about it. It has a good look. There's cinematography in it, which is it's nice.
It has redeeming qualities. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's cinematography in Nakey Jakey's video, but also Starfield has a nice look. There's stuff that works in the aesthetic, but none of the systems or mechanisms or mechanics hang together. Nothing hangs together. But the thing that I'm the biggest fan of in Starfield, and this is mean, and this is but also it's kind of backhanded, and also it's kind of canonical for this particular type of show, given the type of the game, the best games of all time show we did recently, which was games that are only under 80 on Metacritic, right? Is Starfield under 80 on Metacritic? Because it should be. If it's not, I give up.
Let's guess. I bet it says 77.
It is 83.
Yeah, 83.
6.9 user score, which is
nice.
Nice.
That's my favorite one.
Oh, okay. I'll get back to it.
Do you have, look at all that juice?
What I like about Starfield is Todd Howard and his cardboard box with a cellophane window Halloween costume of a Cheap Trick that he's been kind of spraying like so much diarrhea, that diarrhea stain of a human being. What he's been... Lord. He's the wool he's been trying desperately with both hands, core engaged, to pull over the eyes of guys like me. At last, the rug done slipped out from under the wool he's trying to pull over the eyes. And I perceived so much rotten hatred of this game amongst gamers because he'd been snowed over. He'd been outclassed hardcore by just any Sony first-party game with loot. The open world game has become the de facto thing.
Well, and also Baldur's Gate 3, which isn't exactly an open world game, but feels like one.
What has happened is Todd and the boys tried to do everything all the time in every game, and now we've compartmentalized that nonsense. What can you get from Starfield that you can't get by just being a guy who owns two games? You pick a game made by Sony, Horizon Forbidden West or whatever, and then pick yourself up Baldur's Gate 3 and have two games. You got one action game with loots and such and a story, and then you got one game with just a story and your role-playing decisions. It's like there's never been a Shohei Ohtani of video games in terms of having story and combat be perfect. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean. I'm just saying that Todd Howard, Shohei Ohtani would turn him into milk. Okay? He would turn him into milk.
And I want to say one more thing, which is we talked about there's a mountain peak and you can go over there, you can get on top of it.
Can't do it.
That is actually one of the first things I tried to do in Starfield and Friends. And in your first mining planet, there was a mountain peak and it had like a weird rock outcropping that was coming out of the front of it. So I actually spent the 15 minutes and walked over there. And when I got there, that
I'd have done something else.
Weird rock outcropping was not there. It was disappeared.
Oh no!
Yeah. I'm not sure how it works, like design wise in the game or like mechanically, but I think it was like a TikTok or a reel that I saw that showed when you land at a landing point on the planet, like things change, like it's procedurally generated like out there. So that mountain might be there on one visit and it might not be there the next. Don't quote me on this, but it's something like that. It's not.
Yeah, but in this case, it was like I walked up to it and it was
you
gone.
Walked all the way in the same instance.
Walked away from it and it was there.
It came back. Yeah.
Yeah.
You done god darn ghost busted the machine there. It's like what you did. So it's like I said, I perceived hate from gamers. I perceived gamers going, is it just me or is Starfield kind of mid, right? Is what the gamers were saying. And I was like, I've been goddarn saying this for so long.
Oh, yeah. You were a Skyrim hater from day one.
All the children agree with me now. All God's children are goddarn my children now. Right, is how I'm feeling looking at Starfield. The fact that Starfield was Xbox's like only first party thing, and now there's this story about it possibly going to PlayStation as well, because Microsoft want money or whatever it is. They're leaving money on the table. It was such a big swing to be like, we got Starfield. It's like dad bought you a car and it's like a 1990 Plymouth Sundance or whatever, right? It's like,
heck yeah. I remember the kid at school at the Sundance with the new Sundance.
The money they spent to get Bethesda so that they could have the keys to their broke, jank, trash, just like loose bag of like maple syrup, sticky marbles of game design, whatever goddarn problem it is they have over there. That they've been trying to make my problem ain't gonna work. And the fact that so much
trying to make it your problem.
It's the only way I can describe Fallout 3. I mean, I kind of enjoyed Fallout 4 because it didn't feel like a Bethesda game as much. It didn't feel like it was asking me to pick up as many books, you know, or whatever nonsense.
I love Skyrim. I love Fallout 4, New Vegas, obviously, but that's not Bethesda.
Skyrim is on my personal cannot chill list, my CNC list. I cannot chill with Skyrim.
Chris, if you're nominating Starfield, it stands to reason you like all the better Bethesda games.
Yeah.
Let's put better in like a series of 4 nested double quotation marks.
Exactly.
It's just the fact that it was this exclusive that kind of didn't set the world on fire at all.
Yeah, there's an expectations thing also that it misses.
It stands as like a sterling example of the out of touchliness of the middle and upper management at some of these places. There's a sort of a creative bankruptcy that might have happened, you know, before any of us was born, if you know what I mean. Talking about daddy, you know, and daddy's daddy or whatever. I don't know, you know, it's welcome back to my conspiracy theory.
We're losing the plot here. I think we need to move on to the next game.
So is this still a top 20 game?
No, we're not losing the plot. I've got the plot. Don't worry. But yeah, Starfield is just, it's really a fascinating thing. And I love the fact that it's the game that kind of has begun the mainstream rebellion against Bethesda. Like the fact that I'm seeing so many people saying, oh, Bethesda games, you know, they're actually all kind of lame. Now that I think about it, I'm seeing so many people say this. And the best part is I'm not even saying this is something if I have any faith in the new generation at all, which I do. None of them is trying to say, well, I've always hated them. I've seen tons of people be like, you know, playing Starfield kind of makes me think that Skyrim wasn't very good. I played it when I was 11 and I guess it wasn't very good. And I'm like, nice. I like that about it. So I love having it too.
What you like about it is that it's so bad that it exposes the entire development team as frauds.
It's not that it's bad. It's that it's the same game they've been making forever. And people are now turning against it. It's like when I wrote the review of Kingdom Hearts 3 for Kotaku.com. And like the very first comment was, I just started playing this game and the dialogue is so bad. It is nowhere near as good as Kingdom Hearts 2. I asked the guy, how old are you? And he was like, well, I'm 22. And I was like, you were 6 years old, dude. Like, just take another look at it.
Yeah.
Like, it's exactly the same, man.
So Starfield, just to sum it up, it's like, I did enjoy it. What I think I'm trying to do is figure out exactly why. Because when I look at it objectively, it is like, man, there's so many like things that I could be critical about it. But the fact of the matter is, like, it got me there. It got me there for a while.
You just love shooting something and then seeing it behave like a double-sized garbage bag full of balloon animals.
Yeah, you got a new planet
with like PS 1.5 Havoc Physics version 0.129 or whatever. Is that what you like?
No, not exactly what I was saying. No, but it needs to go back to formula. I think that it all needs to be revisited.
I think Bethesda needs a whole new creative direction. So here's what I'm going to say about Todd Howard. If you put David Cage in a time machine and sent him back to like 1922, he would become more than Hitler. Like Hitler wouldn't even try, right?
Or would he be geographically?
Probably somewhere in Germany, just to make sure.
Yeah.
To make sure that my argument holds water.
Just to be sure that we make an ultra Hitler.
And does Hitler exist? So it could
Yeah,
possibly,
Hitler exists.
Hitler exists. He just gives up when he sees David Cage. Oh, he's got this.
He sees David Cage and he's like, I'm not in.
Painting pictures of his mom's coffin or whatever it was Hitler did before, that whole thing. That's what would happen to David Cage. But here's Todd Howard in a nutshell. I thought of the best way to describe him if I were describing him in a classic actionbutton.net review. Todd Howard is not so much a snake oil salesman as he is a man with the aura of having drank snake oil and survived with nothing to say about the experience. That's Todd Howard. He's a man with the aura of having imbibed snake oil.
A snake oil drinker.
And now has nothing to say about it.
Let's say mid-1920s, you have Adolf Hitler, you have David Cage, and you have Todd Howard.
Yeah.
Who becomes, who wins?
Who wins? Oh, well, David Cage is the greatest monster.
Which one of those three is blowing their brains out in a bunker a couple years later?
I can't have this. This needs to be edited out.
All right. Well, so I guess
let's move along, shall we?
Starfield, bottom of the barrel, right?
But yeah, that's number 20 on our list. Tim, you're next.
So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick a video game here real quick.
Doesn't sound real quick to me.
I mean, I got too many.
Time is relative, Brandon.
We'll see.
I'm picking a game that lends itself to the texture of the conversation so far. Starfield did a little too much. Final Fantasy 16 did a little bit and did it pretty good. Baldur's Gate 3 did all the stuff and was also, has tens of thousands of words of script and a huge number of developers, and it was in early access forever. Right? Spider-Man AAA game, 3D, virtuosic geometry and such. And, what was the other one?
Small Saga.
Small Saga. This is a pretty small game. So I'm gonna pick a game that I played last year that I enjoyed a whole lot. I saw a GIF on the Twitter. They call it something else now. I can't remember what the name is. I saw a GIF on the Twitter and I thought this game looks cool. I went to Steam and was delighted to find it quite affordable and cheap. I purchased it and I played the whole game, just sitting right there, 3 hours. A game called Pseudo Regalia. Have y'all heard of this game? Y'all heard this game? Y'all heard this game? Okay, so this game, it is a 3D platform game with good combat and a sort of a Metroidvania structure. It has a nice low polygon. Is such a gauche way to phrase it. It
got really popular within that realm.
I mean, they got me. Yeah. They got me, a goddarn guy who just saw it on Twitter, retweeted. I bought it within like 12 minutes of seeing that tweet.
I was really curious about what got people so much because it there have been a lot of attempts to make a nice 3D action platformer.
Well, let me tell you about this one.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good. You pick it up and you play it, and within 3, 4, 5 minutes, you're like, oh, the person who. Okay, so there's young people out there now. Did you know this?
I heard about it.
There's young people out there.
I heard about
that. One of the primary forms of communication on the internet is, hello, I'm 22 years old. And I just was reading Wikipedia, and here's this, right? So there's a lot of that out there. But a lot of these young people who are making video games, and I mean, I don't know how young this person is. A lot of these young people making video games, while they may be young and while they may be using aesthetics, right? They may be just like going for an aesthetic, a PS1 aesthetic or a PS2 aesthetic, downloading bespoke polygon wobblers from the Unity asset store or whatever. So they get the PS1 polygon wobble or whatnot. There's a lot of this going on that's purely aesthetic. But a lot of these games, I've been delighted to see that you play them and the design stuff is all there, So this Pseudo Regalia game is just a really, really, really good Metroidvania that's about 3 hours long. And it has very good combat. And it has what I refer to as honest geometry. It has very, very good virtuosic sweeping geometry that rather than Starfield where you're on a planet and you can go to a mountain that disappears, in this game it's how do I get over there? Well, let's figure it out and let's do all the stuff it takes to get there. And I mean, it's I believe it's the developer's first game. There's roughnesses to it in the UI, and it feels a little unpolished presentationally, but everything about it is just so solid that this developer is going to make a goddarn masterpiece someday. I don't know when, but someday, like, is going to make a multi-mega million selling masterpiece of a video game. And I mean, the combat is really good. Like, even if you just play the opening dungeon, like you have to get out of a jail into a castle, there's just stuff in there that feels like a PS2 game, feels like your Bujin guys, your Shinobis. It's so clean and honestly presented. It's like if you make a video game that graphically reminds me of my PS2 games, of like Brightus on PS1, Neo Rude, Lagnacure Legend. You make a game that visually reminds me of that, while also reminding me of Undertale, while also reminding me of, you know, your Devil May Cries and your Bayonettas, and just decent, but minimalist, decent, honest, bespoke. It's got Titanfall, wall running. It's got very, very, very beautiful, pared down, minimalistic, ultra hyper, super clean Prince of Persia style stuff, but it's fast and it's you can play it at 120 frames per second. It's just so clean and great. You make a video game that in the first 3 minutes reminds me of Landstalker, right?
Ooh.
You got yourself, I'm just guessing, millions of dollars at some point in the future, millions, if not billions. You're the next Todd Howard, in my opinion. So it's all in all, one of those just really, really pleasant. It wasn't even a surprise. It was a surprise to encounter it. It was not a surprise that it was good, you know? And I just, love that game. I thought that was a really, really good one.
I thought I had a recollection that I had looked them up and they had more stuff, and that turned out to be true. On Itch, there's a bunch of earlier games, and an interesting thing that you can do there is a lot of their prototypes and stuff are there, so you can kind of see how they got to where they could release a virtuosic level 3D platformer.
I just checked to fact check myself. It is their first Steam release. Okay.
Got it.
So it's their first Steam release. Not that Itch is not real, or that Steam is to wheel video games, but also it's like, I mean, I'm playing it and I'm thinking like Brave, or I'm thinking like Vex. I'm thinking like Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Like, I'm thinking of 3D platform games for PS2 that like nobody talks about. There's a little Mario 64ism in there too.
Have you seen their upcoming one here?
Oh yeah, the upcoming
Electrokinetic.
Yeah, it looks pretty dope. There's just so much juice in there in terms of just the design wisdom that has survived in a crystallized format in this person's work. And I'm very impressed by it because, you know, we hear 3D platformer, right? There's not a lot of those. There never, ever really were. Yeah. You know, it was never a thing because once we started getting 3D video games, the genre got fractured. And then it became a point where we've got 3D, we've got a couple 3D platformers, but now there's some that are more interested in shooting. Like Jak 2 started to get interested in shooting and vehicle riding. And then, you know, Grand Theft Auto 3 had come out at that point already. And it's like we ended up not really getting too many 3D platforming games because the children who of the age who would have played Super Mario, they were more interested in Grand Theft Auto or you know, something like that at that time. So it's like the 3D platform game never really existed as a genre. You had Sonic, you had Mario. There's a little bit of Kingdom Hearts in this pseudo regalia game, but in a really good way. I was just extremely impressed by my entire experience with the game, and it was my little game of the year, I would say. $5.99 on Steam.
So better than Starfield, but how much better than Starfield?
Well, I'd say much better than Starfield. Well, Starfield's at number 21 on the list, right?
20. We're doing 20 this year.
Oh, just 20. Well, let's just say 21. Make it. I mean, let's just say it's the honorary. It's even if there's only 20 on the list, it's number 21.
Got it.
So get a little right. I mean, why not? There's a buffer zone on it. I don't know. So what are the other games we got? We got a couple other games in here, right? It's got a couple of them.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, Spider-Man 2, Small Saga.
Put it above Spider-Man 2.
Fine with me.
In my opinion.
I like that.
Because it's pretty
I got no problems there.
It's pretty good.
All right. Top of the order. Brandon, you're next.
Is that me?
Yeah. Yell something. What you got?
I guess that's me.
Scream something at us. Go for it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do a funny one.
Who cares?
Yeah.
You're allowed.
Nobody cares.
Comedy is legal here.
I'm going to do a little game called Forspoken.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was one of mine. So now you just opened up a space for another. Like Pseudo
Nice.
Regalia was my pick because you picked Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm going to pick them off your
there you
list
go.
here. So
I love Forspoken. I love it. Thank you.
here's the thing about Forspoken. I'm going to get the VO thing out of the way.
Yeah, do
the
it.
VO isn't that annoying at first. And the dialogue isn't that annoying, though it is weird that everyone's thoughts is voiced, which feels very expository. But then you get your cuff thing and you go into the other world, and then it's just
Talking
like
to a cuff. Yeah.
the dialogue it's awful. And I hate
I
it.
can't believe I'm talking to a cuff.
And it feels like it was designed to wound me. However, I don't think that other people should get to say that because it's exactly the same as the dialogue in the beloved children, tweens, adults show Gravity Falls. Like,
oh, yeah, sure.
it's this, and people love that.
Can I also just say that the discourse for this was an absolute poison swamp.
It was.
It was like some of the worst people unqualified to talk about
Yep.
writing or dialogue.
Yeah.
David Mamet never weighed in because, he doesn't have to. Like it was.
I mean, those trailers were bad.
Sure. The trailers were awful, but some of the poison swamp discourse that actually wounded me was seeing people say people are only being critical of this game because the main character is a woman. Uncharted sounds exactly the same. No. Uncharted, Nathan Drake, his dialogue was better. Like this is like.
Well, I do suspect that they added.
It's possible. Sure.
I think that added to the flavor of the dislike of this because I do think.
Oh, sure. It sure did. Yeah.
Because something had to kick people out from. I watched Gravity Falls, but I hate this, and I think that.
I guess what I'm saying is, I saw people being like defending the game by saying y'all are only mad at the writing because it's a woman character. If it were Nathan Drake, you'd be giving it awards or whatever. I had to rip my headphones off, and I wasn't even listening to any music at the time. I was like, no, that's not it. It's okay to say the dialogue is bad. It's okay. And also, you know what, Brandon, have you tried this? Have you put it into Japanese?
I did it. Okay, I have stuff to say about that because the dialogue is different. The writing is different.
Yeah.
In Japanese, and it's actually better.
And the acting is like so good.
Acting is so much better. And
yeah.
I actually felt kind of bad about this because I was like, one of the problems is that she's supposed to be 21, but she sounds like she's about 38. But then I realized it's literally the actress.
Yeah.
It's her face and her voice. And then I felt a little bad
about
cool.
that.
It's cool, but yeah.
She wasn't given the best material.
No, she was for sure not.
But holy Lord, the game, right? Right?
Yeah. So
let's hear it.
It's a third person action game where you are fighting with magic and only magic, basically. And it's like all ranged combat. And it's really fun and neat, and it's just something you can really blaze through. And I like the way that it's kind of an open world, but there's no particular looting to do really, because there's like you get a few artifacts and then you upgrade them, and whenever you find something, it's kind of like a big deal. There's treasure chests you can get out there in the world that give you like crafting materials or whatever, but it's not like. The big things are the big things, and moving around is kind of weird and janky, but in a way that's fun because you got this magic parkour, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But it's fun to figure out how to get over there.
Yeah,
try
Brandon,
to get to a place. Yeah.
Would you say this is 2023's best third-person action game where you fight only using magic?
Yes.
All right.
I would.
Quite narrow, yeah.
I think the combat stuff is really nice, and I think it's like really interestingly designed.
And the world's kind of fun to be in, and the story is not bad. The story is very regular, but like it's like pretty good. Like it's a neat world. It
is a Super Nintendo JRPG. It's very much feels like a Super Nintendo era JRPG, but written with the vocabulary of the design vocabulary of the modern open world game in a way, lightly.
Yeah, and what's striking to me is I really can't think of another game that was completely tanked and taken down by its dialogue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of AAA quality. And that's really interesting to me because if not for that, I think people would have loved this game. I think people didn't play it because they watched those trailers.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't.
Trailers were atrocious. I did a stream of it where I played it on a stream and I was like talking, right? So it was like I didn't really pay much attention. Then I like listened back to some of it. And there is some bad dialogue early in the game where it's overwritten, where you get your cuff and you talk to the cuff and it talks back, and it's like Banjo-Kazooie. Very first thing that happens in Banjo-Kazooie is a guy pops out of a hole. If you're unfamiliar, guy pops out of a hole and makes fun of you. And then then the bird in your backpack makes fun of him. And then he makes fun of the bird. Yeah. And then the bear makes fun of the guy making fun of the bird, and back and forth.
It's the classic 90s. Nobody likes each other. Everybody's insulting each other. Why are you together? I mean, they're fused, but whatever.
They write 8 or 12 lines of dialogue where 2 would do a lot early in the game. And then it gets a lot better.
And also a lot of that banter gets repeated because the out in the world banter, you hear it about 50 times, and after the first time, you're tired of it. So,
but it's such a neat looking game.
But it's a cool game to play. And so I would definitely recommend, if you're going to play it, and I do recommend that you do, because it's cheap at this point because people hated it, on it, I should say. They didn't hate it because they didn't play it.
Yeah.
Just change it to Japanese or another language that you don't speak natively right away. And you'll have a much better time. And I think you'll just like it. I think you'll just have a good time.
Oh, man. So it is currently mixed on Steam if you just look at like the top GIF on the about this game on Steam, that's about the frame rate you would get on a console, first of all, owned consoles. I got a 4080 and Intel 13900K over here, and or I got a 4090, sorry. And that's overclocked as well. And it still kind of runs like trash. It struggles to get 60 FPS on this PC, which should not be possible. But man, the graphics, the use of color, the HDR, the character designs, the outfit designs, the monster designs, the world design, it is just a stupidly gorgeous looking video game. Like it is like
really good.
Every little effect, it's just incredible to look at. To have it on your TV and be playing it. It's beautiful.
They could do a remaster of this with the dialogue rewritten, and I think they'd be in good shape. Like, I think they actually could. This is the first time I would ever suggest something like that.
I even think the whole I'm from New York and what? I'm in a fantasy world now? It can work, man. It didn't have to be written that particular way.
That particular beat, it was not good because she moved straight to glib from her whole life crashing down and her having to give her cat away and all her money literally burns up in a fire.
Yeah, it was.
And then she goes into this weird place and then she's just like, whoops, dragons, hoo-hee-hoo. And
is that a mother freaking dragon?
Yeah, like she needed a little space to mourn all of her life. That just went away.
Even David Mamet would probably have not used the F word there, and that's he's used it more per minute in Glengarry Glen Ross than I think any movie of all time.
This is very much a game that is only rated M for the language. Yeah. There's nothing M about this game otherwise.
This is like such a what am I trying to say? A GA game when we're talking in terms of the old ESRB ratings. It's like such a GA game.
Absolutely.
A KA, kids to adults.
And so this was another reason that the dialogue wounded the game terribly because they didn't need to do that at all.
In terms of setup, progression, plot, I played a ton of it. I didn't beat it, but I played a ton of it.
I didn't beat it.
Did you beat it?
I did not.
Oh, okay. Well, in terms of plot and progression and where it goes and twists and reveals and stuff that happens, it is the closest you're going to get in the year 2023, 2024 to a AAA Super Nintendo JRPG. Like it is like so
Super Nintendo action RPG, I'd say.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm saying JRPG in terms of just the pacing of the game, the plot, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, action RPG, J action RPGs fall into that umbrella as well. But it's like the closest you're going to get to a new Final Fantasy VI on a modern console with your 3D graphics and your action and all that. It's the closest you're going to get.
Pick it up.
And that's even over Final Fantasy 16, which is because it has the brand name, right? if we consider Final Fantasy like a fashion label, right? Like Final Fantasy 16 has the brand name, they can afford to do weirder stuff. Where Forspoken makes a couple more traditional structural choices that just makes it. I mean, you'll be right at home in about 5 minutes if you get through that New York segment at the beginning. If you're an old school JRPG head, so
I want to know where we're putting this game.
Good question. I would put it above Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I would. Yeah. You know what? I would put it right below. Above Spider-Man 2, definitely.
Yeah. You want to put it below Baldur's Gate for now?
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's put it below Baldur's Gate for now.
Okay.
Nice.
I like the idea of we're having a real Square Enix afternoon.
Yeah. They were on a tear this year, in my opinion.
There's 2 more Square Enix games that are just as good, if not better, on my list. So,
Kris Graft, it's time to redeem yourself.
No, 21 for Starfield on a top 20 list. I think that's fair. But I just had to call it out.
No, it was good.
No, we wanted to talk about it. So
we did.
I appreciate it.
I know, exactly. I had to work through this with my friends and figure out, like, I finished this game, but
But why?
I'm going to confess that Brandon told me that you were going to talk about it, and I got excited. But the whole Todd Howard is a man who drank snake oil and lived, like that was fully improvised. I promise. I'm really, really struck by the succinctness. I think I nailed it.
So what do you got next, Graft?
Yeah. Oh man, I actually have like more than 2 more games.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like,
No, that's good.
Wow,
That's good.
I spent like 20 minutes on Starfield.
You got to roll them out.
That wasn't entirely your fault. Let's be
About
honest.
12 of them were mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more fun.
Okay, I'm gonna go for one that I think that people can get with. RoboCop Rogue City. Like,
Yeah.
Well, I have some that I know that are like
No, this is
controversial
good.
among this crowd as well.
Robert Kopp.
Yeah, Robert Oliver Kopp is his name. That's what we called him as a child.
His name is Murphy.
Drop it.
Murphy.
Drop it.
Drop it, creep.
Murphy.
Think it over, creep. What else do you got? That's it.
No,
Thank
he says your move, creep.
Your move, creep.
Yeah.
I'll buy that for $1.
He doesn't say that.
I'll buy that for a creep.
Yeah.
It's a different guy.
Yeah, it's a totally different guy.
No,
He
that's
does
him.
buy that for $1, though.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's who it says.
One of my absolute favorite RoboCop catchphrases.
Bingo!
When he shoots a guy in the nuts. So, Kris Graft, quick question. From the beginning of RoboCop Rogue City, how much time passed between pressing start on the title screen and you shooting a guy in the nuts?
Bingo!
Like, did you shoot a guy in the
I absolutely did, and there's even there's an achievement for when you do that.
Of course.
They pop a big Cheeto.
I don't remember what it's called.
They should totally explode when you shot them in the nuts. They should just go
Oh,
blah, but it should be like a headshot.
Man, when I was working
Yeah.
at a video game company called Grasshopper Manufacture, and my job was having great ideas, and then James Gunn being hired to just write a script instead. I had the idea that there should be an enemy with that they should have just very flashing red spots on their groin, and when you which is their balls or their wiener, and when you shoot these dudes, they blow up. And Suda was like, "Oh, that's a little too racy, don't you think? It's a little too sexual."
What?
Suda's big boomer. Suda, he's a big boomer.
Yeah.
Big boomer energy.
Famously once told you people don't like cats.
Oh yeah.
But I want to hear what Kris Graft thinks about RoboCop.
Okay,
Let's
so
hear it.
if you don't know what RoboCop Rogue City is, it's basically delves deeper. It's after he becomes RoboCop, after Murphy becomes RoboCop, and
the before one wouldn't have been as exciting, I don't think.
I think it would have been cool. A prequel.
Human cop.
So it's first person. It's not RoboCop 3 where it has like the pack and the jetpack and everything. Like you're a regular beat cop. Like you are going around, like, yes, you get into encounters and there's combat. The combat super solid, but you also go around and you write tickets for cars that are parked in the wrong place.
They practically force you to write those tickets, which I found very sort of funny because, like, RoboCop, sure, he shoots people constantly, but we all know what really keeps the money machine running, which is like this old junker truck is 5 minutes overdue on their parking meter. So they need to get a ticket. That's who the real criminals are.
Getting money from poor people.
So they know how the police really operate. So there you go.
Yeah. And there's even a part where you as RoboCop, this guy with like this super advanced tank-like suit that is only like a brain and you're going around, and your partner Lewis, who is in the game also, she gets injured. She gets sent to the hospital. She's in a coma. You go around the police headquarters with a get well card.
Get well card, yeah.
You go around and you have other people sign it. Get well, Lewis. Which is,
I mean, all of that is to say when people have conversations about video games, usually very loudly in public, and are wrong a lot. You hear a lot of people use the phrase, suddenly since 2014 or so, everybody knows the phrase narrative design and just blames anything bad in a game story on narrative design or whatever. What you're talking about are the symptoms that this game just has really good narrative design. It's just, it's very, very well done. That's good video game writing, in my opinion. It's very good.
And also, those are optional. What I was just talking about, like what I love is that the game embraced not just like the pure like robot with guns that can like kill anything, the violence of the movie. It's like it embraced the slower parts of what life might be, and it did it in a way that's just like super duper endearing. So yeah, that's what's awesome about it. He's also like a detective. Like you're going around, and these things I'm talking about are a lot of them are optional. Like there is,
and some aren't even quests.
This isn't obvious in the marketing. To me, it's not obvious in the marketing that this has like the skeleton of what could be, and I hope becomes, a like really fleshed out RoboCop open world RPG.
Well, but in the meantime, what they did is this thing that everybody always talks about, including and especially us. They did several micro one block RPGs, basically, where there's like, it's not one block, but you have like a chunk of town, and you go around and do things in that chunk of town, and then you remember what's there, and you have to go back to those places, and you know what those people are. It's kind of neat. I had a couple other things to say about this show. Or this game. It's not a show.
Well, no, I mean, you accidentally call it a show, but
it's kind of is a show.
It is one of the first. It's a good slip here because feels like, and I don't know any of the developers personally, but it feels like there were actual lessons like observed from Yakuza that are in here. I feel like there's got to be. It feels like there's something of that in there. And Yakuza is famously the most TV show-esque video game series like out there, right? So it feels like a thing.
So two things, two kind of negative things. One is I felt like the shooting felt imprecise, like they start you off too slow. Like you have to upgrade yourself so that you can be a little better and faster. But it just like, especially the slowdown shooting was like, how am I even supposed to do this? It just didn't. But I just got over it. And then one thing it was funny to me, but also not funny. As soon as you get control, I threw a guy, and I didn't realize that he must have gone through a wall because there was a guy that was alive. So my next objective couldn't start, but he wasn't visible or anywhere. And so I had to restart the game, which was very, very annoying. But that's just a minor thing that I thought was funny. I have a story to tell about the developer. One of the developers is Teon, which is a Polish company that has had a lot of relationships with Japanese companies. So that's why I was saying that there might be a little Yakuza awareness. But so last DICE Summit 2023, I talked to one of the biz dev guys at Teon, and he was talking about how cool it was. They had put out this Terminator game that people had liked.
Yeah,
that game was neat.
I played some of that.
Yeah, and then he was like, and you won't believe who loved this game. And then he scrolled to a tweet he had saved, and he was like, look, and it was Elon Musk talking about how much he loved Terminator. And he was like, so we must do something about this for RoboCop. And I was like, Elon Musk sucks. We all hate him. And he's like, can you explain to me? So I spent like 15 minutes trying to explain to a Polish guy why we don't like Elon Musk. And
I mean, that guy's a bag of turds, but...
So I'm going to say, to their credit,
Yeah.
They did not do anything with Elon Musk for RoboCop. So that's the end of my story. They did.
I remember Elon Musk recently, you try to avoid this guy. It's really hard to like mute him or block him on Twitter. He was saying something about Grand Theft Auto 6. He's like, I honestly never vibed with GTA 5 because the very first thing you have to do in the game is shoot a police officer.
Yes.
I was like, ooh, interesting.
Him and all his nutbag hanger-ons were like, yes, only the best for the police.
Do not like Grand Theft Auto anymore.
That's
I didn't
the
like
issue.
there wasn't a button to salute them.
Bunch of godforsaken Poindexters, yeah.
One of his hanger-on bros was like, yes, I too would never play such a game. And then there was like, someone just put right below that a tweet of him talking about how he 100%ed it and loved it so much.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yes, sir.
Nice.
Yes, mister. Yes, daddy.
So anyway, yeah, we like Robert Kopp.
I like that RoboCop.
Yeah.
I will also add to this discussion of RoboCop that I had a few moments in the year 2023 where, again, from a position, from a throne of luxury, I intone this particular opinion about many games. As a man with a 4090, right? While playing Baldur's Gate 3, there was a point during my Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough where I was like, you know what? Video game graphics really don't need to get any better than this. I've been saying that since 2015, since like Witcher 3. First time I saw Witcher 3.
I said that was Sonic the Hedgehog when I was a kid.
Yeah, dude. Well, no, I mean,
that's true.
First time I ever said it and felt like I meant it was Witcher 3. And I still kind of agree with that. I still think, like, especially with the next gen update, Witcher 3 still looks good. I definitely felt that ultra hardcore playing this RoboCop game, which is has all the ray tracing and all the stuff. And it has it has good technical art. The art direction is good. The art style is good. It's not hyper real, but it's like, in terms of polygon count and such, the beauty of the performance on my PC, I'm like, I don't need a video game to look better than this. 120.
I'm a man with only a 4080, so I can't relate. But it's
all you need. It's $10 more. That's a joke about the 4090. It's $10. It's $10. You.
Oh my God.
Lord.
Can I submit a formal request in writing that we never play that sound effect again? It's grating.
You better write it down, because
last thought on RoboCop is that the people that made it are obviously like fans and not just fans, but
they
care
get the cop.
about. Yeah, they understand what the actual themes are. And that shows through the whole thing.
It is without a doubt the best RoboCop game, and it is.
Some of those RoboCop games are pretty good, actually.
And they are, yeah. And I think that it's hard to make a licensed game that doesn't feel like a licensed game in any capacity. And I feel like this RoboCop game, it just feels beautiful. Like, oh, cool, they made a RoboCop game. You don't think about it being a license, I would say.
So Chris Graft talks about it having like the foundation of just a massive, beautiful open world RPG. And one of my criticisms of Cyberpunk 2077 was that I wish it looked just like RoboCop instead of being like 2017's concept of 2077. I would have rather it look like 1987's concept of 2017, right? Like, it's what I would have rather had with that game. I remember when this RoboCop game came out, I received countless correspondences via the internet from people being like, is this exactly the sort of game you were talking about? And I was like, well, yeah, this is meaningfully interesting looking cyberpunk to me. And I was pleased to discover the texture was there in the writing. It's our closest Verhoeven video game yet. Mm-hmm. But I just want to point out, before we move on to ranking it, I just want to point out that the Steam store, if you go to the top of the Steam store, the description is a little off. So I'm going to post it in the chat here. The description on the Steam store is: become the legendary part man, part machine, all cop hero, and deliver justice in old Detroit. Needs a bit of a copyright, no pun intended. Needs a little bit of a copy edit, no pun intended.
I read that.
First of all, I would get my red pen out, and that the word hero, we can get rid of that, and then maybe it's okay from there. Get rid of the word hero. Don't need it. Part man, part machine, all cop, hero.
The hero part of RoboCop kind of. I mean, Verhoeven did like refer to him as like American Jesus or like an actual hero. But I think the whole concept of a hero was like the marketers and the merchandisers turned him into like a lunchbox and action figures and things like that.
Yeah.
And then
Saturday morning cartoon character.
He's a tragic character, is what I'm saying. He's not that a hero can't be tragic, but I think it's
he's a tragic character. I think I mentioned this on this show before. That movie was advertised during my cartoons, and me and my brother went to see it. I was 8 years old.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wild stuff. Anyway, what I would rewrite this as become RoboCop, part man, part machine, all cop, deliver justice in old Detroit. Periods. There's 3 short sentences. That's what I'd do. Nobody with a gamer hat is looking at your Steam description and pumping their fist like Tiger Woods because you made one big long sentence. Like, long sentences are not the same thing as weightlifting. Get over it. That is not a Giga Chad maneuver. Shorten your sentences. My God, everybody on the social media writing your captions for your TikToks. Learn. You don't need commas for everything. Don't just put commas in there and say.
Also, their patch notes should always say,
I don't read those.
We fix everything.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that would be a good patch note. Yeah. Anyway, become RoboCop, part man, part machine, all cop.
Yeah. Where to rank?
Deliver justice.
For me, it can be anywhere up to and including number 2.
Yeah. I'd say between Baldur's Gate and Forspoken.
Yeah, you go and put it in that number 3.
Sure.
I would say that's good.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 is too gargantuan.
Yeah.
It's the tens of thousands of pages of script, Is it tens of thousands? What do I know? I didn't count.
What's a page as well? So who's next? Is it Tim?
Your mom's next.
I believe it's Tim, yes.
Man, we haven't done very many of these yet.
No, we haven't.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, they're getting
should
faster.
we pick up the pace?
They're getting faster.
I don't know how much longer I can actually stay.
Oh, well, shut up, Chris Graft.
Might not be 4 hours.
Well, why'd you say 4 hours? You've already committed.
No, I didn't. I literally said 4 minutes.
He said 4 minutes.
You stupid dirtbag.
He said 4 minutes only.
You gotta be kidding me.
Like, come on.
I said 4 minutes. Okay.
If only we had some kind of sound effect to convey what kind of a Nimrod you are.
Idiot!
I can do 1 or 2 more.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Tim.
I can throw you one. There's a couple of big obvious ones, more so this year than any other year. I think I mentioned last week on the show that it feels like 2023 was, you saw a lot of older critics saying it was a great year, one of the best years in history for the gamers. And then I was talking about that Stellar Blade game. Let me finish my thought about that Stellar Blade game because it's apropos of what I'm about to talk about. That Stellar Blade game, I talked about how I felt old seeing it, right? I forgot to mention the thing that made me feel the most old about it. First of all, game looks pretty good. Action looks great. You know what made me feel the most old about that game, Brandon? Maybe you're aware of this as well. Is after the trailer, which had just overbearing voiceover of a guy describing the mechanics as you're seeing them. This is a sword. In the world of Stellar Blade, it is called a knife slicer. It can be used to cleave the flesh and reveal the crafting loot items or like whatever from the spines of your enemy beasts, right? And after that trailer, overbearing voiceover, just describing everything, giving me the vocabulary word for the everyday object. I'm fine with that. It does make me feel old. But what made me feel the most old was when they cut to, I don't want to make fun of a guy for being clean shaven as heck, but he looks like he's like 12 years old. And he's like, hello, I am the CEO of this developer and the creative director. Stellar Blade is the video game we have wanted to make all our lives. And I'm like, oh man, that's sick. That's weird.
Is that Hyuntae Kim?
Yeah. He's a young looking man. I'm sure he's not 12 years old.
He's not. I interviewed him once.
The camera is like above his head. So his head is coming down to like the middle of the frame. He's framed to look like a 12-year-old. He's very clean shaven. And it's just like, that's the video game you wanted to make all your life? That's weird. If I were to elevator pitch you the video game I wanted to make all my life, I'd be rich in like 12 minutes, right? But it's I don't know. Anyway, that made me feel old. And it's just like, is that the kind of video game people have wanted to make all their lives? And it made me realize that last year, with a new Zelda, a new Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Armored Core 6, a new 2D Mario.
Yeah.
You know? And then a few days ago, we learned there were 500 games as a service being developed now. Everything is pivoting over to games as a service. You know, everybody wants to make the next Genshin Impact, the next Honkai Star Rail,
They sure won't.
the next Destiny, and they won't because there's only there's only room for a couple of those.
There's already a Honkai.
It occurred to me that last year was there was even a new traditional Assassin's Creed last year. There were 2 games in the Like a Dragon series released last year. It occurs to me that last year was like a funeral, right? It was like a funeral for the Gen X gamers, the people who grew up with Nintendos. I'm not saying that these sorts of single player games won't ever, they'll still exist probably forever. But anyway, you know what? I'm going to go ahead, and since we've got 2 Square Enixes, I'm going to just say Octopath Traveler 2 is I did not like the first one outside of the way it looked, but I only liked the way it looked the first time I saw a screenshot, not the second. The tilt shift thing has invaded cinematography and direct to streaming service limited series. Has been watching HBO's The Gilded Age. Season 1 looks fine. Season 2, you get the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and then the hair's out of focus, the shirt's out. They've got to stop, just because you can afford the wide aperture lens doesn't mean you should use it for literally everything. I think the HD 2D aesthetic as an aesthetic is done, and I think they should put it away. I think it looks stupid. Still excited about that Dragon Quest 3 remake they've got cooking. Having said all that, the first Octopath Traveler, I thought it was weird that your characters never talk to each other, that you're recruiting a team, and then you get into a cutscene, and then your whole team vanishes behind you because this is a cutscene for this guy, not those people. And then he's alone in the cutscene. I wonder if this is where my father's ghost wanted me to go, he says to no one, right? There was stuff about Octopath Traveler 1 where none of the story stuff vibed or hung out. And it's kind of difficult to say it's all fixed in Octopath Traveler 2, but it basically is. It's basically all fixed. So they said that they made Octopath Traveler 1 because they wanted to make something like, we like Final Fantasy VI. It's our favorite game. And we work at Square Enix, and we want to pay our respects and our dues or whatever. We want to show our respect for Final Fantasy VI by making a new classic RPG. And they didn't do it, right? There were superficialities that kind of lined up. But even Hironobu Sakaguchi and Bros and Co., they needed to make 5 Final Fantasies before they made Final Fantasy VI, right? They needed to make 7 before they made Final Fantasy VIII. I don't know what that means. They needed to make 9 before they made Final Fantasy X, right? Yeah, etc. They needed to make 15 before they made Final Fantasy 16, etc. I mean, technically, they only needed to make 13 because you don't count the MMOs in that case.
I think they still had to make them.
These guys over at Octopath Factory or whatever their game company is called, whatever their studio is called,
they just got purchased by Kadokawa.
It's called Uninspired
today.
Is it called Uninspired Names Video Games?
I think it's called Creative Business Unit 3.
No, that's the one that made Final Fantasy.
I know that's the Final Fantasy guys, but that's
there's multiple creative business units. Did you know about this? There's a couple of them. There's 3 isn't just some quirky number. When Final Fantasy 7 came out and a guy in your dorm asks, "So is the 7 is that like a number?"
Yeah.
Or is that just like part of the name? A guy actually asked that, like no joke. And that guy was actually 4 guys. So it wasn't just one. I'm aware of this question.
Bungie developed 342 different studios before they got to Halo.
That's true. When Final Fantasy VIII came out, someone said, "Is that the new Final Fantasy VII game?" So nice. No joke. But anyway, to finish up my thoughts on Octopath Traveler 2, they just made a real one, I guess. And it might not be the greatest or best video game that anyone's ever made, but it is the closest you will get in the year 2023 to a Super Nintendo JRPG on your TV. I said the same thing about Forspoken strategically. That's if the JRPG had stayed the dominant genre, Forspoken is the kind of video game we would be playing all the time now. Whereas Octopath Travelers, they just made a new one for you. And for the first time in Octopath Traveler history, it was on Steam day 1. So you could play it at 4K 120 frames per second, which I've got to say really, really helps that game. I mentioned it on a stream and somebody jumped down my goddarn throat well, you don't need 120 FPS for Octopath. It's like, did you not play any Super Nintendo games as a chilled? Because they were 60 FPS, man. Octopath Traveler 1 was like 18 FPS on the Nintendo Switch. You try to tell me that's a good way to play a game. I would have enjoyed it more if it had been, 60 FPS. I would have taken. Anyway, that's all I have to say about it. Who cares?
So I will talk about it as well.
Yeah.
I like that you can change the time and the music in the title screen. I like an RPG with an attract mode. I think that's fun.
Oh, I love that.
The music's real nice.
Very PC Engine-esque.
Battle system is moves really quickly, which I like with its brakes and boosts system.
Clippy as heck, yeah.
And just a little wrap up, like I agree. I had the same exact feeling of like Octopath. I thought it looked cool at first, then I didn't, and I played it and I didn't really like it, and then I played this one and I was like, oh,
they made a real one.
They know what they're doing. They went ahead and did it. And so my final word on Octopath 2 was that it feels like, what if the people who made all the RPGs that all the indie RPGs copied just went ahead and made one of those themselves? That's what it felt like to me.
Which is why I am renewing my theory for Final Fantasy 17 is going to be a Super Nintendo game. They're going to just do it. That's my theory. They're bringing Sakaguchi back.
God, I would love that.
And they're making a Sonic Mania of themselves. Final Fantasy 17.
Oh my God.
It's just going to, and then you'll be able to buy it on a cartridge if you want.
That's going to be my funeral.
That's what I want.
Chris Graft, did you play this one?
I actually did. I have
Octograft?
Yeah, Octograft Traveler. Yeah, I started playing it and then was like, oh, this is kind of what I want right now. I want kind of like a chill JRPG type thing. And then all of a sudden it went not chill. And for me, how much of it did you play? Oh, only like a couple hours, maybe 3.
Oh, so you got to like what, a combat encounter that was too hard or what?
Yeah. And then I just felt like I must have done something wrong at the beginning or something.
No, it's the combat is not old school JRPG-esque. It's very, very designerly combat, right? So it's very much...
the combat system. It's super interesting. Don't you like click up your full slot?
Yeah, your special thingy, whatever they call it.
Yeah,
it's ultra designerly. It's the word I would use. It's like the Matrix. What do you call it? Matrix, the video game company, not the movie series. Like the four Heroes of Light or Bravely Default. I mean, it is those guys, right? So it's like it's very designerly. It's somewhat tabletop-y. It's not exactly an old school RPG, but it's like a system that like could have existed in those times, but they were obsessed with.
I'm gonna go back to it, but it was just one of those things, where it's just like, oh, I've got other games to play or whatever.
So when I say the combat is decidedly puzzly, it's like if you're stuck in a combat encounter, it's likely there's like some stupid puzzly hook that you should try another angle. That's my overarching tip for if you feel beaten down by that game.
All right. Do we want to place this game?
Place it in your mama's house. Kaboom.
How about above Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, why not?
Ooh, Spider-Man 2. Frank's stuff is just getting completely...
Oh, man, I'm loving this Square Enix domination. Last year, we were talking about how they released like more 7 out of 10 games like per month.
Lovely shovelware.
Than like were released like by all game companies ever per year. They were doing good. Whereas Final Fantasy 16, Forspoken, and Octopath Traveler 2 are... So Octopath Traveler 2 reviewed pretty well. People who actually bothered to play it and write reviews of it really loved it. And I remember Jason Schreier like screaming about it on Twitter, and I like texted him. I'm like, is it like actually that good?
Yeah, I don't feel like it sold as well as the first one, though.
No. So we're giving it an honorary 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right? Is what we're doing. It gets an honorary 7 out of 10, even though critics liked it. And critics tried to tell everybody it was good, but, factoring in the user score. And I mean, I just need to reiterate my favorite story about Octopath Traveler, which is when I was a kid, my pediatrician told my parents I was an Octopath. They were very upset. And then it turned out I was just really good at math. There you go. Tune into my YouTube, my new streaming show, Video Game Stand-Up Comedian. That's the kind of joke I would tell.
Julian Barre-Goemon syndrome over here.
Oh,
Who's next?
My toilet's next, actually.
Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. We'll be right back.
The
following ad supports the Insert Credit podcast, but is not necessarily endorsed by its individual members. This is the Insert Credit Quick Break. I'm Alex Jaffe, and this week's Insert Credit is sponsored by GLYDR. Modern games give your hands a lot to do, whether it's executing movement tech in competitive shooters or reaching for health kits when the action is at its most intense. At GLYDR, they're rethinking this problem and giving you the ability to move actions from your hands to your feet, allowing you to focus on core actions, relieve hand strain during long sessions, and customize your perfect control scheme. GLYDR is an analog foot controller allowing for up to 16 different actions mapped to your feet. GLYDR is fully compatible with your PC library, seated VR experiences, and select console games, with more compatibility coming soon. When you're done playing for the day, GLYDR can make video editing, music production, spreadsheeting, and much more an even more efficient and enjoyable experience. You can reserve GLYDR for $100 off today at feetlegal.com, or simply search for GLYDR, that's GLYDR, on Kickstarter now. Get your feet in the game with GLYDR. To sponsor a future episode of Insert Credit, get in touch with me by sending an email to show@insertcredit.com. Brandon, you're next.
Hey, that's me.
Yeah, just do it already.
Alrighty. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and do one, is what I'm going to do.
All right.
It's a little game called Street Fighter 6.
Oh, yeah, good one. You know what? Tasty game. Good game. Good job, guys.
So this is a funny and relevant because we talked about in our Metacritic episode how fighting games, you shouldn't let game reviewers review them because they lack the context, or people that lack the context. And
oh, yeah. I was thinking of this while we were talking about that. This is good. Yeah.
And this game, I think,
is the opposite.
You kind of can, because the World Tour mode, which isn't very well named because the World Tour makes me feel like I should be doing a Street Fighter Championship, but whatever. It has a lot of stuff in it, and it made me forget that Street Fighter V ever existed. It has silly dialogue. You run around and fight enemies and gain experience with your own little cute little silly little avatar.
Fun little goofy thing, yeah.
It's a goofy thing, but there's so much in it, and you learn from different masters around town, so you get to like meet and interact with Chun-Li and Ken Masters and etc. And you get to kind of, it's maybe the first Street Fighter where you get to hang out with them a little bit.
Yeah.
And you put on stupid clothing, and you can do like special moves that will get you across the environment and smash barricades and get on top of rooftops and stuff. And it's just like a joyful experience. It's like blue skies, positive vibes, very upbeat, and it actually made me feel nice to play it.
Good old video game time.
It makes me feel like they thought about how people feel about the FGC, the fighting game community in general, and tried to impart those kinds of positivity, support each other vibes
to the outsiders,
into the
it's FGC the video game, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is what it's like when because when you do like a spinning bird kick just out in the world, everybody cheers.
Yeah.
Just like random people cheer. And
I had this idea of playing a Pokemon. I did a video where I was like, what percentage of NPC dialogue in a Pokemon game is people talking about Pokemon? And while I was doing it, I was like, there should be a Street Fighter RPG.
yeah.
And like, no joke, I'm like, where they're like, everyone's talking about Shoryukens. My Shoryuken technique needs a little work.
Yeah.
But my grandpa knows some herbs that can help me or whatever. I'm like, man, you could do this, man. You could do this.
And they did it.
It's so funny to like be in a world where everybody loves to fight for fun. And so you can like buy food from a street vendor and then fight them. And they're like, cool. you know?
Yeah.
You can fight all the cops you want, fight all the cops.
I mean, I would prefer being able to slit their throats with a straight razor or open up their torsos with a shotgun.
Yeah, that's why this game's not number one. Probably.
That's why I'm personally barring it from being number one.
But I also feel like it's a really interesting way to teach people to play Street Fighter because there's a lot of repetition. and you go into like the Chun-Li area, which is the Chinatown area, and everyone fights like Chun-Li, and you have to fight like Chun-Li, and you have to learn her moveset, and you gain more of her moveset as you go. And so through forcing you to do that, you as a novice player can be like, you know what? I think maybe Chun-Li's fighting style is more interesting to me than Luke's, who you start with, or than Ken's, who you get after that. And because you get to do it in such a kind of non-threatening, supportive space where it's like everyone wants you to succeed, including all the people that are against you, sort of.
Yeah.
It's just a really neat thing. And it's like they put this big single player experience into this. Oh, and also just to talk about the game itself, like I really like the drive system and how all the various things you can do with the drive gauge. It basically unifies a lot of previous Street Fighter concepts like parries, focus attacks, EX moves, and all that stuff into one system that can do a lot of things that feels creative as a player who does know about Street Fighter somewhat and can experiment with it. I'm like, oh, you can do this and then you can do that. And it just felt like immediately kind of connecting nodes for me. And so like Street Fighter 4 was kind of a revelation in that it proved you could truly take a 2D fighting game experience into 3D and have it work and have people truly get behind it. And 6 it's not a revelation in the same way, but it's the most impressive single player experience I've ever seen in any fighting game.
We can finally say we've got a better single player than Toe Ball number 2.
Yeah, indeed. And
finally,
just the drive gauge and all the systems related to it show an understanding of the things that they have done well in 3D Street Fighter and how to put them together into a package that doesn't give you like 15 gauges and all these things that are, it's like more, you can do more things, but it's less confusing to me.
Yeah. It's designerly.
Yeah.
It's designerly in a very nice way.
They really did a good job.
It's a nice, clean. Yeah, good job, guys. As I said, I believe that was my first comment. Good job, guys. They did good. Capcom's pretty good. They've got people over there who've been working on these games. They have current employees who have been working on Street Fighter games for literally 30 years over there.
Yeah.
There's this designerly wisdom in there that is. I was thinking about this game last week when we were talking about elderly game developers and like what that's going to look like. I'm a big fan of Guilty Gear. The current generation of Guilty Gear. I'm a big fan of this Street Fighter 6 as well. I think the work that needs to be done, there's been, like I said, Pokemon, there should be a Street Fighter RPG because in Pokemon, it's a whole video game with a campaign and a story that's basically just teaching you how to build a good deck of Pokemon to fight against your friends. And it's teaching you the idea of seeing your friend and fighting your Pokemon against his. And then he beats you. And then so you spend the next week trying to figure out a better party to beat his party. But then he's changed his party, right? So it's like and you lose again, but you want to keep trying. It's like it's trying to get you. The RPG exists to introduce you to just myriad competition angles. But Pokemon also, it doesn't feel like that. Whereas the Street Fighter single player mode does, it really does just feel like it's trying to teach you to want to play against people, which is nice because it is, online multiplayer or whatever. I think there are two things that I would love. One is like a full-on campaign RPG with Street Fighter as the battle system. I think that would be fun. Yeah. Like not like a serious story. I do love the tone. The tone overall is marvelous. Yeah. But my second prong here is the work begun by this single player mode will be finished when Street Fighter has like an Animal Crossing moment where so many people are like, I'm going to play it. And they learn that you can have a really good time. This is what the fighting game community started with. You can have a great time just playing fighting games against your friends who are not professional fighting game players.
Yeah.
You don't need to be top 8 at EVO to enjoy playing Street Fighter against a friend in your house when he's over for a couple hours.
I think that's like the most important thing for fighting games to be doing right now because I used to when I was a kid, I used to play them all the time. And like as awesome as like the fighting game community is, and it's awesome that like there's so many people that are super passionate about it, sometimes I do feel like, well, if I'm not good enough to even be at that level, then
what am I doing?
What? Yeah,
you're gonna get in there, and someone's gonna hit you in Guilty Gear with a combo that like the geometry of which spells out the words KYS boomer as you're getting hit. And you're just going to be like, man, I'm not welcome in this exact match of this game. But it's, I think what I would like to see is, and it's, again, don't have to abandon the hardcores here, right?
Of course.
In fact, the hardcores are welcome to, they are the bread and butter here. But what if there was a little bit more of a gentle push in this game toward all your friends who have a game console? Y'all can hang out in this little virtual room and play Street Fighter together. And it's like, you can do that, right? But it's like, turn that into even more of a sublime small community experience, and just hyper ultra normalize the idea of just playing low level Street Fighter against your friends and having a great time.
Yeah. Like when you would invite people over like at your house and you're playing, and it becomes more than just like I beat you or like I win. It becomes something where you're just having a nice time. Yeah.
The thing that's most vital for fighting game longevity is to have a friend that's at a similar level to you to play with.
That's how Serena and Venus Williams happened, right?
Oh,
like they have each other. It's not magic. It's having a buddy.
They're good at Street Fighter?
Yeah. At this point, I'd like to ask where we're ranking this.
Let's see. That's a tough one for me.
Yeah, a little bit tough.
I like it a lot. Man, I could put it at number 1, but that feels weird. But I could go as high as number 1 if anyone else wanted to. It doesn't have to be. That's fine.
Let's put it over RoboCop, under Baldi. We can have a shootout at the end. We can have a final shootout.
Okay.
But,
okay.
I don't mind it being over RoboCop.
Okay, Kris Graft, your contractual obligation is to give us one more game, and then you can hang out for as long as or as little as you want after that.
Yeah, and then we'll kick all your games to the bottom of the barrel. Yeah, as the second you leave,
just like you did with Frank. I'm gonna go ahead and say, because this is, according to Steam, this is like the second most I've played outside of Baldur's Gate, is Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon.
Yeah, number 1.
Yeah.
Let's put it up at number. Let's put that at number 1. Thank you.
Yeah, and. I didn't give myself enough time to really like flesh out my thoughts on this, so maybe you guys can all help me out here. But like, I played the original Armored Core on PlayStation, and this gave me that feeling. Like, you go there, and to me, Armored Core is about building robots. Like building giant robots to me. And then I love how it's just so straightforward. This is like, I know I kind of brought this up as Starfield, maybe have a problem, but it just like, it tells, like, sometimes maybe this year I just needed a game to tell me what to do, and then I go do it, and I challenge myself, and then I'll try, and I'll fail, then I pass.
Do it better.
Yeah, just do it better. So the customization in this game on the robot is incredible. Like my son was showing me TikToks of this, of people. Somebody had a Home Depot.
I mean, you've got a son who's showing you TikToks about Armored Core. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So in other words, are you telling me that I was wrong to not have children a while ago? Because that would be cool.
You can still do it, but it's going to be
made
like,
it sound well. No, it's the time, the amount of time I'd have to sink to get that for the next Armored Core.
You'll be looking at TikTok version 5, 6, 7, 8 on the Apple Vision 20 of Armored Core 12.
My child would be like, Grandpa, have you seen this Gatling gun? And I go, I'm not your god-darn grandpa.
No, people would always mistake my dad for my grandpa.
Your mama's a liar.
I thought that my mom. Wait, in this scenario, the mom is telling the child.
I'm the grandpa.
The dad is her dad. That his dad is.
That's spooky.
That would actually be. Your mama's sick, is what I would say. She's got the fever.
So yeah, the combat's great. Like the weapon feel is amazing.
I was gonna say, would you say that it was Ace? But then I realized we're talking about Armored Core, not Ace Combat.
It's Ace in any case.
Lost my brain.
If it was Armored Core 3, you could make that joke.
Nice.
Because the 3 looks kind of like an E as per the Driv 3er rules.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The Driv 3er bill signed into law
but
by the game Driver 3. I have a lot to say about Armored Core 3 or 6. I don't need to say too much about it. It was my most played game of the year, I believe, in terms of just raw hourage. It kind of arrived and then it kind of left the conversation pretty quickly, which is sort of how I like it, to be honest. It was, discourse in general was pretty bad about games in the year 2023. There are people like, it's not as good as Elden Ring. It's not very Dark Souls. And it's like, okay, that's a bad conversation to have, but it's also the conversation in which people get mad at that is also bad to have because it is the director of the Dark Souls games directing an Armored Core game again. It is Hidetaka Miyazaki making an Armored Core.
It did sell real well.
It did sell real well. It might have sold to some misinformed people who had the wrong idea, but it also sold to some enthusiasts. It has a lot more in common. Not, usually when I invoke the name of this particular game series, I do so somewhat facetiously, though in this case, I'm absolute all sincerity. Armored Core has a lot more in common with Gran Turismo than it does with Dark Souls. Like it is about solving
I can
problems.
Totally see that. Yeah.
And the problems are action problems and they're boss problems. And it's like, what kind of robot should I build with the parts I have? I just recall people reacting with surprise to the idea, it's actually a little bit more of a game about building a robot than it is about the action. It's like, dub-a-doy. It's you're spending a lot of time in the menus, and the menus are actually beautiful and not clunky this time, which is nice. Not that they were ever like clunky per se, but this is the one game that when Microsoft announced the Xbox Elite Series 2, which I have on my desk, why is it not auto? It's auto focusing on it. For those of you in the listenership, join the $100 Patreon tier to get access to the video feed. That's not true. It's not true. But if you seriously like that idea, tell Alex Jaffe you think it's a good idea. When they first announced the Xbox Elite Controller Series 2, they talked about the new software that they have. It took me until the year 2024 to stop calling it the Xbox One Elite Controller Series 2, which is funny because it's just the Xbox Elite Controller now. They announced a new software, and the Xbox Accessories app would let you map buttons to shift, right? Which means you can make one of these rear paddles, which are taken off at the moment, but you can make one of these rear paddles a shift, and then while you're holding it, all the buttons on the whole controller can be remapped to other stuff, right? So you can have the shift paddle held down, and then the A button becomes something else. But the way I have it is the shift is my upper left paddle, and then the other 3 paddles become different things. This was the first game to make me I was excited for the shift feature when they announced it. This was the first game to make me actually map a profile that had a shift on it. So it's like the first game to make me do that. The idea of the paddles, in case anyone listening is still not with it, it lets you keep both fingers on the analog, both thumbs on the analog sticks at all times. That's why you have rear paddles.
I used those on the Steam Deck.
Oh yeah.
I played a decent amount. It's got 4 back there.
They got a lot of pull. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I use the back ones. I think I might have done dash or dodger or something. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to put dash on there, like for starters. Yeah. But it's a real hamburger handful of video game. There's a whole lot going on with your hands. I really wish I had like 8 directional foot pedals, Bluetooth on the floor in front of my desk, under my desk, so that I could map some stuff to that. I think that would actually be like a very, very perfect video game to play with.
No, you really are. When you're playing the game, it's like you can't see, like if you're listening, what my fingers are doing right now. But what would you say that's doing? It's like you're
tentaculating. I would say you're tentaculating with your fingers. So it's like you do a lot with your fingers. If I had 2 8 directional clickable foot pedals under my feet, I would have stuff to do with those as well.
You'd be like one of those one-man band busters that just like...
Yeah, exactly. I love that game. I understand that. I actually applaud the gutsiness of not making it the Elden Ring of Armored Core, right?
Yeah.
Or the Elden Ring is the Elden Ring of Dark Souls, right? Which is interesting. Last year we diagnosed Elden Ring with early onset Alzheimer's disease, right? Where it's a game that immediately was just itself, and it was its own archetype, which is neat. It's the Zelda Breath of the Wild Dark Souls. Apparently that's enough to make a game itself, right? Is you combine two things of such magnitude that it becomes itself immediately. Well, so Elden Ring was the Elden Ring of Dark Souls. Like, they did not make Armored Core 6 the Elden Ring of Armored Core. I respect that a lot. They just made a PS2 game. I know there's some good Armored Cores for Xbox. They just made a PS2 game in the year 2023, and it's 4K 120 FPS, rock solid on my PC. And I love the level design. I love the aesthetic. I love the vibe.
Yeah.
I love solving the problems. I love making my robots.
You just gave me a lot of numbers. What number is it on this list?
Number one, but not really. I mean, Brandon wouldn't want it to be number one, but I like it a lot. It has to be above RoboCop.
Yeah, it's got to be above RoboCop. It, to me, is kind of like it's a toss-up to me between Street Fighter 6 and.
I will say that Armored Core 6 is absolutely the official action button game of the year. I already declared that on one of my live streams a couple weeks back. So Armored Core 6, it's already won a pretty good prize in front of a live audience.
Brandon, how do you feel about placement?
I would put it below Street Fighter 6. I haven't said anything about this game because...
well, you were talking about your wrist problems, yeah?
Yeah, well, I did play...
This is the least wrist-friendly video game I think I've ever...
It's not wrist-friendly.
Seriously.
I played it a bit, and I was like, this is a real good one of these.
Did you die at the tutorial boss? Did you die at the helicopter? Everybody did.
I don't think it's for me.
It's
not the kind of game, but not in a way that I feel dismissive of it. It's like, this isn't the kind of game that I value getting good at. Yeah. And that was true. But I like the multi-targeting. I thought the movement was cool and everything. It's just like...
It's the best.
It's not the style of game that I find rewarding to improve it.
So there's Armored Core is another game where...
That's not the game's fault.
Where it's... So there's two things for Armored Core. I do think what's good about it is so skull-crushingly, immortally, invincibly good. There's no reason they can't make one that sets the world on fire, right? There's no reason they can't do it.
Well,
and they didn't do it here.
You do have to be more interested in robots, I think, than I am.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, I'm saying they could get you interested in robots.
Yeah, maybe
right?
so. Because the customization part for me was something that I rushed through because I'm not really a customization type person in general.
Well, what I'm proposing here is they should make one where you can play online against your friends, both of you low level, and still have a great time. And you can do that in this one, but it's like, what if there was more of a casual nudge in the user experience toward making people aware that they can have a spectacular time slamming their big giant robot action figures against their buddies? You can paint your robot weird colors if you want.
Yeah, maybe I will.
You can make a big pink one. Like, you do whatever
what
you want.
I was talking about, with the TikTok thing.
Oh, the TikTok, yeah.
There were a bunch of TikToks that I was seeing of the best one I saw was where somebody decked their robot out in Home Depot, and it's just like,
oh yeah,
that rules. And then it's just pushes it out it's when it's launching, and it just has the Home
good.
Depot.
That's 100% cooler than Ronald McDonald versus Colonel Sanders in Fire Pro Wrestling, in my opinion, because the gameplay is better. I've seen some pretty crazy robot liveries in Armored Core 6.
It made some good robots.
That stuff's kind of neat.
So whose turn is it? Is it Tim's? Chris Graft, do you need to go?
I should probably head out.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
God darn it.
Thanks for being here, Chris Graft.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to our audience before you sign off?
Yeah, check out in particular Alienware gaming monitors. Tim has brought up, but that's what I work on. But as much as a marketing person can work on anything, but Tim has been dropping frames per second, all that stuff.
He's been talking about numbers.
You got crazy ones over there.
Yeah, we got 500 hertz. And it really is
500 hertz is a lot.
I love the fast. That's what I'll say. It's pretty awesome stuff.
All the old games on PC that you can run at an uncapped frame rate, god darn rip your brain out the top of your head when you play it on one of those things. I personally have an Asus Republic of Gamers monitor, which I never disclose the brand because I don't want it to sound like an advertisement, and I only bring it up today simply to mention that I'm not a shill for Chris Graft's product, just Chris Graft himself. So we're all
shills for Chris Graft. I recommend Chris Graft.
Chris Graft.
Right.
So I'm looking at these Alienware monitors. What y'all need, and just let me know, is
hey, check out the 32-inch 4K QD OLED. 240 hertz.
If you all made a 48-inch QD OLED, I would consider it.
Okay.
Because I'm a 48-inch boy now. Do you see? Are you looking at my camera feed right now? That's a website that's not even all the way white. Okay, I am sunbathing over here.
That's a lot of nits. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it. I've got the eyeball situation. I mean, I'm in Adobe Premiere all the time. This is what I look like while working, right? So I look like this. I'm in Adobe Premiere. I need to be able to distinguish between 64 shades of gray.
I hope that it has like built-in blue blocking stuff.
No, it's got it. Yeah. I've got
my
massive
headache.
I actually wear a pair of these reading glasses while I'm using my monitor most of the time. I just don't have them on. I don't need to read it right now.
I'll take it. You got me to finish your thing.
Yeah, we've got 9 more games.
9 more games. Oh, these will go fast.
All right,
we'll see.
See you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, Chris. See you next year. Bye-bye. Tim, it's your turn to serve up a game ping pong style. For the rest of this episode, it's just the two of yous.
Yes.
Yeah, let's ping the pong. So the current standings: Final Fantasy 16, Baldur's Gate 3, Street Fighter 6, Armored Core 6, RoboCop, Rogue City. Did they ask like my 10-year-old self to write this list? I mean, Armored Core 6 was a game that my 10-year-old self would have invented Armored Core 1 if you'd given him enough money. Is what I'm saying. The game wasn't out itself by then. We've got Starfield in at number 21, which is brutal. But fair. It's fair. It's honest. So we're gonna need another game on this list, and I've got an idea from one. We got 9 more games.
Yeah,
we need 9 more.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna throw in some that I don't think anybody else on the show is going to have played. And I actually think this gives us a nice occasion to discuss a slightly different topic than the game in question, which is I'm giving it up for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Here's my rules for a Game of the Year candidate. Has to come out this year. You can't be like when Hollow Knight came out on the Nintendo Switch and won Game of the Year from a bunch of places. That was on y'all for not playing it on the PC several years earlier. Well, it came out on consoles people actually own. No, people actually own PC, and we loved it on there, right? That's what I think. I think the game should come out this year. Meanwhile, Cyberpunk 2077 did come out in 2020. Yes. Phantom Liberty is a DLC. Yes. But guess what?
What?
It's like 20 some hours, and it's a whole goddarn brand new RPG's worth of content, and it's just better than everything else in the game. It's just the best part of that game. It's got Idris Elba in it. He's all over it. Can't get rid of him in it. He's all over the place in there. Oh, they paid him a lot to do a lot of work. There's a whole new region in the city. Moreover, and I know this does not allow something into the game of the year discussion. I'm saying all that qualifies as a new video game. It is basically a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. It is a whole new video game inside the video game. Let us not forget Street Fighter 4 takes place story-wise, between Street Fighter 2 and 3. That doesn't make sense. Why did they do that? They only had 3 games. Why'd they have to make a new game and put it between 2 of them? That's weird. But they did it, and they did it a long time ago. Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty takes place in the middle of, in between like 2 missions of Cyberpunk 2077, the main campaign. And it's just like a whole separate thing that recontextualizes a lot of stuff going on in the story. It's no longer crass or even gauche to say Cyberpunk 2077 is pretty good, because it is. They got there, and I know the thing that does not qualify it for GOTY reassessment status is the fact that they patched the goddarn heck out of it. And it is now a fully complete game with all the systems that were expected at launch perfectly working, and some new ones thrown in. The DLC also redoes a lot of the perk systems and the ability systems. It just kind of redesigns most of the core aspects of the game. It makes the whole game a new game, in my opinion, a much better new game. Having said that, assessing just the DLC, as it's called, that is indisputably a new video game. It's very, very much a new game. And it's a very good one. And I think the fun conversation topic here is, I don't know, is DLC video games? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We counted Miles Morales as its own game.
Yeah, but it was released actually as a separate game, and you didn't have to own, you do have to own Cyberpunk 2077 in order to play Phantom Liberty. You have
and
to.
I think that's what kind of gets me with the. I don't dispute it being its own a complete game experience.
What I would say is you can buy the 2-pack now at a price that I think feels fair for just the DLC.
Mhm.
So I think you can buy the 2-pack. Let's forget that the original game was on sale on Steam before the DLC came out, and now not so much. Well, it is a little more. It is somewhat on sale. Oh man, the DLC is $25 and the game is $29. So getting them together, I mean, I think it's a $60 experience in my opinion.
All day.
I had a $60 experience, but then again, I admit I'm out of touch with the dollar value of an experience these days. I don't feel the dollar value the way I did back when I scrimped and saved for a year to buy Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo. But I feel like it's worth it, man. It's cool as heck. There's just so much new stuff in the game now. Yeah. I mean, again, the new stuff that's in the game is through the whole game. Here's what it is. Okay. The Resident Evil 4 remake was nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. What this Phantom Liberty feels like is it feels like they made a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077. And then they also made a remake of Cyberpunk 2077 that includes all the new stuff and mechanics from the sequel. That's what it feels like. And then they bundled them into one thing. And I think that's neat. And it's a heck of a concept. And I don't think any of those Witcher 3 DLCs were ever won any Game of the Year awards. But those are pretty good as well. That's my weird pick. Thank you.
I like it. Where do you want to rank it?
I was going to say I haven't played it, so it's on you to rank.
I don't know. The question is, would it go above or below RoboCop Rogue City? Let's go ahead and put it below. I would, below RoboCop is good.
And above Forspoken?
Actually,
above
no.
Forspoken?
Let's put it above Octopath Traveler 2. Why not?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because there were some caveats in there, Nell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phantom Liberty. What is this? A Metal Gear Solid?
It does sound. I was initially not very cool on the premise. I thought the premise was kind of like, what's going on? It's like a spy thriller about the president of the United States, and Idris Elba is like a cyber vampire. But it definitely is it is definitely way more of a 90s cyberpunk movie feeling than the game was.
That's neat.
So good plot stuff in that game.
All right. 8 games to go.
Yeah, I guess it's my turn.
Yeah, kill it, bro.
I'm going to go with Cocoon.
Oh, yeah, that game looked neat.
So that's a game directed by Jeppe Carlsen, the Limbo designer. And I didn't like Limbo, and I didn't play Inside, but I did play this game, and I liked it.
I don't need to despise. It's like a strong word, but I actively despised Limbo and Inside. I really hated them.
I got that impression, and so I forgot that this.
So I just David Cageified the whole lineage of.
I forgot
game.
that was this designer. This is a very different kind of a game.
Wasn't this game also like nominated for best debut video game or whatever at the Game Awards or something?
It might have been. It was because it was a new company.
Yeah, new company. I guess corporations are people. I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
They nominated corporate games for best indie game. Didn't that happen?
It did.
Yeah.
Dave the Diver.
Yeah.
So this was a game where the aesthetic didn't super grab me. It's kind of fun. You're a little bug guy going around moving big orbs. But the more I played it, the more I started to like it. I wound up completing it. It only takes about 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, baby.
And the puzzles can sometimes be obtuse, but they're mostly quite nice. And it's neat because you got an orb, and that orb represents a world that you can go inside of when you set it into a place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And then once you have additional orbs, you can bring those orbs inside of that other orb. And so you're carrying a world within a world around, and then you have to unnest those in order to complete certain things, or like shoot a beam through this orb into the other world nested inside of that world, and then it'll do something over here. And there's just a lot of kind of nesting of puzzles, but in a way that doesn't feel...
Yeah.
It doesn't feel trite, and it doesn't feel too labored, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And the boss battles are kind of neat. It's just they don't do the thing where, like, they'll show you how to do something, and then they'll have you do 5 things with that brain problem, and then they'll move along. And they don't they don't make you grind puzzles like some puzzle games do, where it's like, okay, you figured out how to do this. Now you have to do it 10 times and it's not any different.
Yeah.
This game it continues to spin the concept just enough to be nice. And it's also a great example of a 2.5, 3 hour game that costs $25 that people don't really complain about. So I say good for them on that one, because I haven't seen that a whole lot.
That is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks cool to me. I just didn't play it because
that's
I heard
fine.
It was what do you call it?
The inside
now,
people.
Here's what I'm going to say. All of the people who mentioned it and mentioned it being good are just people who I think are kind of lame. So that's why I didn't play it. I was like, oh, the people who are very much. I don't want to make fun of anybody in particular.
This was a game where...
Oh my God, it actually is an Annapurna game.
Yes, it's very Annapurna
I was like,
vibes.
oh my God, it just looks so much like an Annapurna game is what I was going to say.
And it was.
Stray is the #1 recommendation under it.
Kind of the way people talked about it was so vague that I was put off. But then when I was playing games for this show and I was looking at my Game Pass, I saw, oh, this game came out in 2023. I'll give it a shot because here it is. And so that's kind of how that wound up coming together. And I found that I didn't like it at first very much, but then I just kept going because the sound design is done in a neat way. And I kind of liked carrying a little orb around as a bug. And I'm like, well, maybe that'll carry me through. And then eventually I liked it. So I wouldn't rank it super high because to me, it's like a fun little experience that I don't think I'm going to be remembering in the future. But for 2023, it was a good couple hours that was very tight and solid, and I respect that.
This sounds a lot like what Frank was saying about Small Saga.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Small Saga is more of a narrative experience, where this is more of a puzzle brain times experience. But I'd put it below Octopath Traveler 2. Above Spider-Man 2 is where I'd put it. It doesn't have to go there. It could go below Spider-Man 2.
Just very frank.
It could go below Small Saga.
You can. I mean, it's
under Octopath 2 is my feeling.
I mean, I didn't play it again because I did see the trailer where it says from the lead designer of Inside and
I didn't see
Limbo, and
any of that stuff till later.
And I just immediately David Cageified it. I put it in my David Cage pocket.
You put it in your David Cage.
It's something I would probably try for if it was $10. I would probably give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I just want to say not every Annapurna game is bad. Every time I see a game and I'm like, lol, it's an Annapurna game, right? It just is. I mean, I can't control that. But there are some good Annapurna games, whatever. Oh. Interestingly, Journey is now an Annapurna game. I don't know, when did that happen? Aside from time immemorial.
Yeah, I don't know.
What else is an Annapurna game?
Okay, so we're going to put this below Octopath.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But I mean, also Outer Wilds is an Annapurna game, and that's like one of the best games probably ever made.
Speaking of great games, Tim, what's our next great game?
We're only that far through this. Good Lord. We got to the dang pace.
There's a couple in here that are going to get mentioned, and they're just pretty perfunctory, I think. Okay. I'll just throw it out. I feel like you probably didn't play this one, but might as well, like everybody else is doing it. So maybe we should. It's Alan Wake 2, right?
Yeah.
I played Alan Wake 2, and if you played Alan Wake 1 when it came out, and if you played Control when it came out, and if you played Quantum Break, if you like all those games, you've probably already played Alan Wake 2. And if you haven't played all those games, you could try. Alan Wake 1, I like a lot, and always have, because it's like an arcade survival horror game, right? So when Alan Wake 2 came out, like I remember looking at like a tweet that was like a link to like an IGN review or whatever. Alan Wake 2 got a 10 out of 10. And then the first reply was some guy who was like, the Gamer Man, a verified Twitter user who was like, I've heard rumors that this game is more of a real survival horror than the original. Can you confirm? And it's like, there's literally a link to the review. You could read it. I mean, I'm not going to comment on what's a real survival horror game. I've been a fly on the wall during way too many what's punk conversations, during which I've never said a word because it's not fun. Is Alan Wake 2 a real survival horror game? That's the worst question. And nobody else aside from that guy I saw asking it, but I feel like I should mention it. A lot of talk happened about Alan Wake 2 People talked around it. They talked in circles. They didn't mention spoilers, because there's a lot of twists in there. And a couple of the twists didn't really work on me personally, but I really, really loved it. And it's extremely well made. And here's what I would say. I feel like while I was playing Alan Wake 2, I was about halfway through it, and I thought, we need a new word aside from AAA. We need, I think AAA doesn't describe what this is. This is not 3 A's. This is at least 4, maybe 4.5, right? Just in terms of craftspersonship, budget, ambition, scope, scale, just the sort of stuff that's going on. It's at least 4.5. I feel like there needs to be some word above AAA. And I feel like, and this is the worst thing that I can confess, I feel like only a game like The Last of Us 2, you don't ask me to clarify this, but only a game like The Last of Us 2 comes close to this kind of gutsy, ambitious doing stuffness, where we know there are blueprints out there for creatively bankrupt executive-style individuals to follow to make a game that winds up getting everybody laid off, right? We know there's plenty of those, and they absolutely didn't do that. They made a good, big, weird. It's a very big, weird, sometimes stupid, sometimes bizarre video game. I love the first one because it is an arcade horror game. It feels really, really breezy and sticky and crunchy and fast paced. This one's way more contemplative in terms of its all of that. But I just really loved it. It's just a big old meaty video game. But my final note is I do think that the metal songs in both games are like the wackest metal music I've ever heard. I'm not, you got to really, really push me to get me on my high horse about metal. As a guy who just said he never said a word during any conversations about what is punk. But it's like the wackest. There's this part in Control that you could tell which video game critics had never listened to any metal because they couldn't stop talking about this part in Control, the ashtray maze, which was cool, I guess. I don't know how much of it was an ashtray, but your character puts on a Walkman headphones and listens to an old 80s metal song that has lyrics written by the guy who wrote the lyrics of the game and provided the face for Max Payne, Sam Lake, they call him. And it's lyrics that kind of over-explain sort of the story. And it's just the wackest sounding Saturday Night Live parody of metal music I've ever heard. And it's, there's people out there in the schools, in the church parishes who believe that that's just what that kind of music might sound like, And for that alone, I can't put this game at number 1.
For what Control does.
But if you're curious about Max Payne 2, or not Max Payne, if you're curious about
Alan Wake.
If you're curious about it, all of his character names have a long A and a K sound in them. Did you notice that?
I did not.
Sam Lake, Alan Wake, Max Payne, what's her name? Only Jesse Faden is the main character of Control.
The Finns love A's.
They do. They sure do.
Put a lot of A's in their words.
It's phenomenal, actually. It's wonderful. But if you're curious about Alan Wake 2, if you're like under the age of 25 and you first of all don't email me, second of all, and you're curious about these games, you should check them out. I've thrown around for a few years the phrase post Kojima. Kojima just keeps on doing his own post Kojima and just blowing my mind even further. But it's a very, very beautiful little example of an alternate post Kojima. Alternate to Kojima's post Kojima. Thank you, Dotwave.
Thank you.
Yeah, I bought the Alan Wake remake. Didn't play it yet. Didn't play Alan Wake 2 because I knew you would do it for this list, and I had to prioritize.
Oh,
yeah. Where do you want to put Alan Wake 2?
Not number 1.
Right, because of Control.
Yeah. Well, I like Control.
Yeah.
Control's okay. I never beat Control until right before I played Alan Wake 2. Or I hadn't beaten it. And if anyone listening hasn't beaten Control and has beaten Alan Wake 1, play Control first. I think it makes Alan Wake 2 a lot more fun. Play the Control DLC as well, which is not Game of the Year material, the Control DLC. That's not a full video game. That's an hour of video game. It's just 1 hour. The Alan Wake DLC is pretty good. Anyway, it's not that good. It's maybe, where would I put it? Well, everybody else is putting it in their top 3, but we don't have to do that. I like our top 3 so far, but not the bottom of the list.
No.
I'm thinking around the cyberpunk area.
Put it right above cyberpunk. How's that? I like the idea of pseudo regalia being.
Yeah, that's funny.
I think so too. I like that as well. Brandon, you're up.
Okay. In the interest of speed.
Yeah, kill it, bro.
I'm going to do Like a Dragon, the Man Who Erased His Name.
Oh, Gaiden.
All right.
Like a Dragon Gaiden. Do you like how we haven't called it Yakuza once this episode? I first said there are 2 Like a Dragon games came out in 2023. I didn't even say Yakuza.
I know.
I only just now noticed that. So
progress. I prefer to call it Yakuza still, but whatever. And in fact, I wrote it correctly in my little list of games to nominate. But then in my notes about the game itself, it's called Yakuza: The Man Who Erased His Name.
Well, it's fine.
But anywho, this is a game that is like the other ones that have been made before, but now it's got more graphicisms. It's got particle effects going all over. It's probably the quickest game in the series from story to action, though of course there are a bunch of big cutscenes right after that. It has kind of a different, more serious vibe without trying to be gritty or mean or whatever.
Ripping from the headlines or whatever. There's not like, it's nice.
And I feel like they successfully make it feel a little more like today than the other ones did, rather than having it exist outside of time, at least in the main story cutscenes, but in a way that doesn't feel cheap. And also, like you said, isn't referencing contemporary specifics.
It's nice.
I think the Spider-Man gadget is fun. Lots of juggling and combat now and stuff. And I think it's very funny how Kiryu is like hiding from the world by wearing glasses. So he's basically Clark Kenting the whole situation.
Yeah.
And it's a shorter, more focused one. And I don't think I could like it less than I liked Yakuza 6. So that means it should be one of the games of the year for me.
Yeah.
So there we are. That's what I have to say. I didn't beat it because I want to take my time, and I was busting through anything where I was like, okay, I've played every other of the games up until this point. I might as well just play this one until I understand it. And that's what I did. And I'm going to beat it later.
Yeah. It's feel free to use my patented Yakuza game method of blast through the story, then do all of those side quests. Cause I think it works well in the fact that this one's ultra short. It's like, I mean, you'll blast through it in a couple days. Like it's
yeah, definitely. I was actually thinking, should I just play this instead of doing anything else for the next 3 days with my 2 hours of free time? But then I didn't.
Yeah, you can do a little episode. I really wish there was more of those.
Yeah,
that was that wanked.
Can I tell you the insane way that I play the Yakuza games?
Let's hear it.
When you go to at least in Zero and Kiwami, which are the 2 I've played so far.
It was pronounced Kiwami. No, I'm just kidding.
Whichever. There's this menu when you open up Start. There's a page that tells you. There's a page that shows you your completion of the story, completion of mini games, completion of social stuff. There's like 7 different categories.
You get it to 69%?
No,
that's a joke.
My methodology for going through the game is I use a random number generator, 1 through 7, and whatever it lands on, I need to do that category of thing next. And I do that until I finish the game, the story rather. And then I do whatever side quests I want to do before wrapping up.
Interesting.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That seems like as good a method as any. I just love ignoring all the side quests and blasting through the plot like a TV show, like a big bowl of cornflakes. I like the combat in that. Like a Dragon Gaiden. It's good.
Yeah, it's fun to throw dudes around. Yeah. Smash them into stuff.
I have not played Infinite Wealth yet. I'm answering that question for what people.
But Infinite Wealth is for next year. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying this so that people on my stream who ask me if I played it tomorrow, I'll tell them to listen to this podcast on Monday. I've not played it yet, but it's for me. It is not for you, the stream audience viewers. It's not for you. It's for me. That's for me to play. I'm not going to play that with an audience. I'm going to put my bib on and I'm going to play that whole thing. But
ranking it.
Yeah, I'd probably put it under Octopath 2 since it is. Yeah. It's not setting the world on fire, but I love it.
I go and put it there. I love the fact that they just did that they made a little 8-hour Yakuza game.
Well, you want to bump it up a little more for that? I'm fine with it.
Just for the gesture of it, put it. Put it right next. I mean, no. I think you got to leave it. The Octopath Traveler dudes pulling out a good video game is.
You have to respect that.
It's a slightly nicer gesture than maybe they'll listen to this podcast when they see how high we ranked it, and then they'll learn that we're just not impressed by the tilt shift, wide open camera lens look anymore. What is that, like an f1.2? That's for the camera listeners. Is that an f.0.8? What is that? That's for camera YouTubers in the audience. I just love the idea that it was a short one, and I think they should just make a whole bunch of short ones.
I agree.
I would play I'd play all of them. I'll play all of them no matter what the length is. Maybe they're testing the waters for episodic content.
What's next?
Well, I kind of want to turn this right around and be like, put Like a Dragon Ishin on there. Did you play that one, Brandon?
I didn't actually. And it's because I bought it immediately because I like to support the idea of those
you like
games.
To pump your fist like Tiger Woods whenever one of those games comes out.
Exactly.
Like I do so as well.
But I was in the middle of Yakuza 6 at the time, and I had to finish that first. And then when it came time to check out another of these, I was like, well, I kind of have to make a choice. And I've heard Ishin is the less good one. So I went for the man who erased his name.
Ishin is super dope, I would say. It's
Can we count it as a game that came out this year, 2023?
Did it not?
I mean, I guess it's a remake.
Yeah, it's a remake.
It's a remake, but I mean, it's
a pretty big, big style
It's a complete remake. It's okay. So the Japanese name, you're thinking Ryuga Gotoku Ishin is the name of the original game in Japan, but this one, Like a Dragon Ishin, the Japanese version is called Ryuga Gotoku Ishin Kiwami. Kiwami is like what they call their remakes, right? So Yakuza Kiwami is a pretty drastic remake of Yakuza 1. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is a pretty drastic remake of Yakuza 2. So this is a pretty drastic remake of Ryuga Gotoku Ishin. But I mean, I don't need to put it on this list. Just just pair it with Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who erased his name.
Yeah, but put it right below.
Yeah, put it right below because we like that Kiryu, don't we, folks?
We sure do.
The trailer for Like a Dragon Ishin starts with on the screen the words "Become Sakamoto Ryoma," and it's like that doesn't play in America, I don't think.
No.
The majority of Sakamoto
That's
Ryoma.
not quite become RoboCop.
So what I got? How many more do I got? I got 3 more.
Tim, you got 3 games left.
3 games left. All right. So I'm gonna name a game that I liked a lot. It's a little game called Super Mario Brothers Wonder. It's called. First of all, they kicked Charlie to the curb. Charlie is dead, and he's now making, quite frankly, insane YouTube videos.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't checked on them.
He lasted about 14 minutes before he I don't want to make fun of this guy, but he lasted about 14 minutes. We don't need to talk about Charlie anymore.
I kind of want to hear what Charlie's up.
I remember Steven Tortilla said he asked Nintendo who's the new Mario voice actor, and they said their names will be in the credits, was like their official response. And then in the credits, it's just an alphabetical list of people, of human people, just like a huge list. It's like Nintendo really just does not want any people who are not a member of their goddarn stonecutters. That's a Simpsons reference.
Yeah.
Their goddarn Scottish Rite, Freemason, Illuminati, Templar assassins, interior organization to take any credit whatsoever for their games. They don't want somebody who has not bought all the way in, like Shiggy and his wife. You know they're weird at parties. They don't want anybody taking any credit for anything in any of their games unless they're 100% full-time employed. And even then, not so much. So this Super Mario Brothers Wonders is neat for a wide variety of reasons. And let me tell you what a couple of them are. Number 1, real good. I mean, that's it really. Number 2, it's a 2D Mario game, and it's a AAA flagship Mario game. It's a 2D Mario game, and it is the new Mario game. In 2017, we had Zelda Breath of the Wild, and then Super Mario Odyssey. Arguably the biggest, first-party 1-2 punch in the history of video games as I will die knowing it, I think. You had a huge new Zelda and a huge new Mario that not so many people liked as much as they liked the huge new Zelda. But I see more and more people saying they love Mario Odyssey. I've always loved it. I see that sort of behavior about that game now. So to those people,
thank you.
I like Mario Odyssey. I think low key, the future of video games is kind of in there somewhere. I think there's an untapped genre just kind of asleep inside Super Mario Odyssey. And it's coming. It's coming for you, Charlie. It's going to get you. Having said all that, they decided to make a AAA flagship Mario game that's just a 2D one. And they did so in the year of our Lord, 2023, going toe-to-toe with their own shadow, which I mean the Super Mario Brothers movie. this joyless, just shopping cart full of styrofoam packing peanuts of a movie. No offense to it. Last time I made fun of it on one of these podcasts, guy told me him and his kids like watching it. Good for you and your kids. Me and my kids all live in my head.
Yeah.
We were entertained, but largely forgot about it. Nintendo releasing the biggest, one of the biggest movies of the year, $1 billion movie, slapping themselves in the forehead, full speed. Oh my God, we could have probably been doing this a little longer, they said to themselves. They had a Mario game strategized to come out somewhat around the same time as the Mario movie. And they did. And not only does it feature an art style that's distinct and also really, 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 really nice. If you haven't seen that Mario Bros. Wonder on like a giant 4K TV, the output in 720p upscaled to 2160p and a RetroTink 4K, ideally, you should do. 60 FPS, very beautiful, very, very, very visually confident video game. But also every single problem I have ever had with a post Super Mario Brothers 3 Mario game, it is like solved by MIT grade electrical engineer precision, game designerliness in this Mario Bros. Wonder.
That's
and
good to know.
I could sit here and give a million examples, but I'll give one. The most boring feeling in the world that somebody like Bennett Foddy would probably lick his lips in a gross, perverse manner and say, this is actually the best part. Because that guy played Shadow of the Beast and pretends he liked it. Actually, he doesn't pretend he liked it. One of the worst feelings in any of these Marios is when you miss the platform and you've got to wait, right?
Yeah.
Now, one may say, magnanimously, it's an opportunity to hang out in the world of the video game, to which I say, sure. But these games are largely technical affairs, obstacle courses, right? So we don't necessarily think of it in those terms.
There's not much to the world of Mario.
So basically, the way you fight this with design is give the player something to do while they're waiting for the platform. And what do you do in Mario? You run and jump. Why do you run and jump? Because there's gaps. There's enemies to jump over. There's enemies to stomp. There's not a single occasion in all of Super Mario Bros. Wonder where I felt like I was standing waiting for something to happen because I missed it. I missed it, risk, and now, I at least get a little reward where the reward for me is me liking a video game. My reward is I get to engage with the monster or a little obstacle for a couple of minutes. I get to jump around a bit, hop around. You can hang out in some places in the world, but they're never like forcing you to hang out in a white walled room, which is what some of their 3D Marios have felt like. I mean, they looked at the idea of a platform game and they just said, what is platforms, right? Is what they said. And in this case, there are many examples where enemies is platforms, right? And the enemies affect the level geometry, right? Where you have a level geometry that's pre-scripted, preordained, but then you have an enemy that you can jump over him and trick him to embed himself in a wall, and now you can jump on his back and he's a platform. But it's all of these mechanics that you would expect a whole puzzle platform indie game to hinge on or revolve around or be built on. And they're just kind of seamlessly, nonchalantly all hanging out in perfect concert all the time. And it is a library of action video game design textbooks. Like it is a really, really incredulously well-built thing. If you would like to play something like that, and you were for some reason not playing this particular one, you've got the highest possible endorsement from a lifelong Super Mario Brothers 3 guy right here, I would say. So I would put that.
That's huge.
At number one on the current list. But I mean, I don't, that's just me though. I would, even though I already said Armored Core 6 is my game of the year, for this, I would say, Brandon, I've got a friend who's a huge bonk guy, and he's not you, believe it or not. And he loves this Mario Wonder, and we were talking about it. So, I mean, I don't know if you played it, but
yeah,
there's so
I
much.
played it for about 45 minutes, and I didn't like it that much.
You didn't like it?
Surprise.
It sounds. You didn't want to. I know. It's you
I
don't
did.
Don't say you did.
I actually did.
It's fine if you didn't want to like it.
I was already, and I was playing it with 3 people.
No, that's no.
Maybe that was the problem.
You didn't want to like it if you played it with 3 people.
Well, that was the opportunity I had to play it.
Well, don't do it. Don't just next time say
it's a single player game.
I smoke alone is what you say.
Yeah.
That's what my parents told me. They said when someone offers you a joint, you say, I'm good. I smoke alone.
I believe that it's very good, and I understand that it's another one of those things where I'm like, do I like platforming at all? Is that something that I like? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
And what is the gimmick of it?
If you do and you don't like this game, use a hater. I think it's 100% use a hater.
Well, I have been grappling with this question. Do I like platforming at all for some time?
You might not. It's fine.
That's what I'm sort of coming around to, is that maybe I just don't.
You might happen to like a bunch of games that have platforming in them.
I think that's what it is.
But there's always something else. In Sonic 2, it's the music. And I will admit, I consider aspects of the aesthetic in Mario Bros. Wonder quite repugnant.
I didn't really like looking at that elephant guy very much.
The elephant guy can take or leave, but I consider the music kind of thoroughly repugnant.
Oh, no.
A lot is despicable about it, but in terms of, from a clinical perspective, like, holy Lord, the more of it you play, it's incredulously well designed.
I know it gets it layers upon itself.
Like, the fact that people are not screaming about how well designed it was is a testament to the 26-year-oldliness of the typical video game critic. I think it is absolutely an old man's game. There's a lot of Splatoon level intelligence in the game, but there's also a lot of 68-year-old Japanese man who's been working on games since the arcade days in their intelligence, and it's a beautiful melting pot. It's a cosmic gumbo, is what we were calling it. Me and Jaffe. We were calling it that.
That is what I've called it.
We were calling it that. But put it wherever you want. I don't care.
Brandon, how low do you want to drag it?
Man, I don't want to be that guy.
Well, you are that guy.
Above Forspoken would be good. I would be fine with that.
Okay.
I mean,
sure.
Also, if I recall, it didn't win Game of the Year from anybody. I don't think.
No.
I don't think it won Game of the Year from any publication because there was another game on the Nintendo Switch that completely erased everyone's ability to think about this one, which is why I started this episode of this podcast today thinking I was going to, talk about it a bit. That's what I did.
When Frank said that Baldur's Gate 3 was this year's Elden Ring, there was another game that immediately came to mind.
It was a little bit more Elden Ring.
Yeah, a little bit more Elden Ring.
We'll get to that one in a minute.
We'll get to it.
Soon, I think.
Every game that I liked the most that I played this year, I have already mentioned. I guess I did it that way this time. So maybe that'll make mine a little faster.
Yeah, go for it. Throw something out, Charles.
I'm going to go with Hi-Fi Rush.
No! I have a list at the very bottom. That's my can't chill with list. And the only game on it is Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush.
That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, even Starfield is not on my can't chill with list.
Wow.
I could do something else.
Do it. Go for it.
If we did Starfield, we got to do this.
Speaking of repugnant aesthetic, I find that the ugliest, stupidest looking video game I have ever seen in my life. Like I had this visceral, like I just immediately was like, no, this is like the worst thing I've ever seen.
Did you play it much?
Oh, I wouldn't touch it with a goddamn 14-foot pole.
Yeah, that's fine.
The premise sounds repugnant.
It's basically like US Saturday morning cartoons meets Dreamcast tune shading, which
don't like it.
I think is fine.
I mean, it's not about the influence. It's you can eat a delicious meal and then point at your turd. I'm not going to see a pizza, right?
Yeah. So hopefully. Your digestive system's working.
If you do got full triangle slices popping out there,
there's problems.
Call your doctor.
It's big time problems. But it's like I kind of wanted to recommend it to Frank because
is it short?
It's got rhythm, action. Everything in the world moves to the beat, and I think the tutorialization is actually super well done. The way that it kind of drip feeds everything to you. The protagonist is annoying, but I think it's kind of fine.
Don't like it.
And it's very blue sky in games. It sort of feels to me like if you extended the idea of a Sega game for the original Xbox into today.
Yeah.
It's, again, like I said, all my favorite games I already mentioned. So I was going to put this one toward the bottom of the list.
No, Starfield's position.
Everything else that I have, I don't have enough nice things to say about. And the reason I want this on this list is because I think Frank would like it.
Okay.
I think that if Frank played it, he would like it.
Could have just put Fuga 2 on there, but whatever you want.
I think it's got some good ideas in it. So we could just put it Right above Starfield.
You could have just put Fuga 2 on there, dude.
Yeah, I didn't play Fuga 2 though. And Fuga 1 kind of weirded me out.
Fuga 1 is good, dude.
All right, I'm putting Hi-Fi Rush on this 3, 2, 1 on the list.
Nice.
Oh, man, what a disaster. Well, so how many more do I got?
You got 2 more.
Tell you more.
I could have put Wanted Dead on the list, but I got too much to say about that to put it on this. We got to talk about it another time.
That would have 100%. I would have preferred that. So I got 2 more games. What's your last game? What are you doing for your last one then? If you don't care about them anymore,
I really don't know.
I care about like 3 games. So if you want to do another one, and then that'll help me decide which of my 2 games I care about. If you want to do 2 in a row, we're already breaking all the rules today. Let's break another one.
I don't know.
There's too many games on this list. There's too many games.
I got a lot of games on here. I don't. There's games that I would wish I had played that I probably would have liked more to put on this list. Like if I had played Resident Evil 4, the remake,
no.
I probably would have put it on here just because it's Resident Evil 4 again.
Yeah, I mean that's cool, but
it would have been at the bottom. It wouldn't have been that interesting.
Yeah. The fact that it was nominated for like Game of the Year was a little weird at the Game Awards.
I almost want to put this on here, but I feel like it doesn't deserve to be there. So
I mean, it's a well-made product.
No, the one that I'm about to say.
Oh, well, go for it. Just throw it out.
Okay, I will. And it's going to be funny after talking about Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
Yeah, let's hear it. What trash you got?
I'm going to put Sonic Superstars on the list. Also
man.
At the bottom.
Yeah,
okay.
Right. Throw that on the bottom.
And here's all I have to say about it is they made a regular Sonic game. It's nothing to write home about. And it's the first time in like 20 years that Sega made a Sonic game that there was nothing to write home about. Nothing too big to complain about. Nothing really innovative about it. They just went ahead and made a Sonic game.
A real Sonic Advance.
Yeah.
That's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's really kind of turning this list into a funeral home in a certain way. So I got a bunch here.
So is that going to be above Starfield?
There's like some games there's some games I just kind of thought you would have brought up, Brandon. That I guess you just didn't. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter. Just games that you didn't play, I guess.
I'm going to put it.
There's a bunch on here that I have more to say about, but I don't think should be on the list. And maybe I should put one of them instead of Sonic. I could.
I mean, if something to say about it is a thing that you worry or care about, yeah.
Nah, I'm gonna leave it because I've been awake for way too long.
All right, so I'm just gonna throw 2 games out. One of them we can get through fast, and then the other we can get through. So it's just me with 2 more games, right? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, one game I really liked. I'm trying to see what's the intersection of all these games that are not. So there's one game I definitely want to put on, and then there's a bunch of games that I could have for the second. And I'm just gonna say, I really Void Stranger is a game that came out last year.
Everybody on the forums loved it.
Played a whole bunch of Void Stranger. If you like. It's a game. That's the game I recommended to Frank earlier in the show, where he said, "What if I don't like Sokoban games?" First of all, I find it really interesting that so many people know what a Sokoban. They know the word Sokoban. That's fun. Storied genre of entertainment. The Sokoban, not to be confused with Sukeban.
Yeah, it's different. That's a kind of a deca that you can be.
Yeah. Also, not to be confused with Sukebe, which is it's a kind of a guy you could be.
It's kind of a guy.
It's a kind of a yaro you could be.
Is it kind of a Yoro that they feel they have to put in every anime?
Yeah, well, you kind of have to because they have them in real life, and anime needs to be life, or it has no ring of truth. So, I mean, if you don't know about Void Stranger, and you take a look at a video of it first of all, don't watch any YouTube explainers or YouTube reviews, or if you have a friend who's played it, don't text him and say, "Oh, what's this game? How's it end?"
It's got a lot of fun stuff in it.
How's it end?
As I understand.
What's in there? What's it about? Don't like if someone you know has played it, don't ask them to talk about it to you in order to make a decision whether to play it or not. Just grip it and rip it, grip it and rip it. Just it's do you like Cave Noir on the Game Boy? Don't answer them. Just look at this game. It's got an unassuming look. It's got a mechanic. It's got puzzles that they make you do over and over and over and over and over and over again. A whole bunch of them. There's a lot of them. I'll leave you with this. When the game Five Nights at Freddy's came out, my friend mentioned casually, have you heard of this Five Nights at Freddy's game? It's like the new Minecraft. Now, a game designer hears that and thinks, what? You don't build nothing in this game?
Right.
That's not right.
My friend merely meant that it's the game that all the kids are
All the kids
about.
are playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, there have been a couple of times over the past couple of years, and usually this particular utterance is followed by a dead silence because, who cares? There were decades in the American publishing industry when cover letters sent unsolicited manuscripts, cover letters mentioned, this book is the next Gone with the Wind. It became a catchphrase amongst editors and publishing company employees. The next Gone with the Wind, right? It's a phrase that got kicked around a lot. It's a cliche to say, my book's going to be the next Gone with the Wind. It's a saga, kind of like Gone with the Wind. That's about gender. Like, this was a thing that authors, both hack and non-hack, threw around a lot for decades. So my friend said, Five Nights at Freddy's is it's like the new Minecraft. It's the video game equivalent of the next Gone with the Wind. But I played enough of this Void Stranger, played the goddamn wheels off it, and it's kind of like the new Undertale.
I did hear people say it.
Yeah. So I've heard people say that as well. There's a lot going on there. I'm not gonna, how much of a frog fractions is it? We're not gonna say, but there's stuff in there. There's stuff in there. Charles.
And just for Frank's note, I did consult the forums. Will I be able to enjoy this game if I actively dislike Sokoban? And the consensus was no. So I don't know. I haven't played it. But
yeah,
it's what the people said.
I don't know.
But I still want to try it because people liked it so much. So I'll report back after I do it.
It's just such a pedestrian conversation to have about the game that I played. It's just such a pedestrian, such a goddarn zygote brained question to ask about it. No offense. In hindsight, if you haven't played it, obviously you can ask that question.
I'm literally buying it right now.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, because it's the next Undertale.
No, I understand that it's dismissive of the product. And the
sure,
experience.
yeah.
But I also don't like to push a box. So
yeah, well, first of all, you're not pushing boxes.
Oh, nice.
You're picking up tiles and putting down tiles.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
Well, that's the mechanic you start with. You pick up a tile, and you can pick up a tile if you don't have a tile, and then you can put it down anywhere there's not a tile. That's the mechanic they start you with.
So, okay, that's different.
So it is not strictly speaking a box pusher. I would recommend getting it. And the Steam description is really nice. Underneath the description, it says Sokoban style puzzle game. So they step right on that rake.
Yeah.
Which is
that was what got me to ask that question because
the little description
everyone was
is
like,
fine.
Play this game, and then I clicked it, and then the thing says a Sokoban style puzzle game, and then I was like, oh, can I play this if I don't like Sokoban? Because the very game itself is saying to me, you won't like this.
I heard it opposite of the game like Cocoon, which I only heard lame people talking about. I only heard cool people mentioning Void Stranger.
I agree with that as well, which is what made me ask instead of not ignoring it.
If you read the description on Steam about this game, I think it's an example of really good copywriting. If you're looking, I get asked for people are like, what should my Steam do? Can you look at my description for my Steam game or whatever? But it's a really good example of making me interested in the game. Includes 2D pixel art visuals with an appropriate soundtrack, plethora of seemingly impossible puzzles, a story seeping through the seams of the void, several stages of frustration, a long road to follow. That's what it includes. And then tips. Number 1, the game auto saves between each room, so take it easy. Number 2, if a puzzle seems impossible, get some rest. Number 3, if that doesn't help, try asking someone for help. Tip number 4, good luck. Very good.
It does unfortunately have a typo in the fourth sentence.
Don't worry about it. It's fine, Jay.
Okay, I won't.
It's fine. It's good. Good copywriting can transcend typo.
Okay.
It can transcend. But yeah,
where do you want to put it?
I don't know.
I'm cool with anywhere.
I don't like ranking things, Charles.
Yeah, well, you're driving the boat.
I think putting it above Baldur's Gate 3 would be very funny.
Sure.
I'm certainly more interested in it than Baldur's Gate 3, just looking at it right now, reading this page.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I mean,
good.
it's a game that everybody in the community likes, so I'm not against it.
I guess it's an insert credit game then, in this sense that insert credit exists right now.
Yes.
God, if you look at the hour counts on all of the reviews, 151.8 hours on record. It's like people play this game a lot. Lord, 99.8 hours per record. Yeah, it's a seemingly innocent puzzle game that hides what might be the most. Let's not.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anymore.
Yeah, let's not.
Yeah, there's just so much in there, man.
All right, where do you want to put it?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it feels weird. I think put it over Baldur's Gate 3.
I like
Just
it.
do it. Just do it.
Grip and rip it.
Yeah, it's funny.
And then the last one is I had my doctor run a biopsy, and Zelda Take came up positive for goudiitis. Brandon, did you play this game?
I played it less than some other games on this list. I played it for about 2-3 hours.
Oh, did you get past the tutorial, the big boy tutorial?
I did not leave the Island of Time or whatever.
Oh, okay. So I'm put into quite a bit of a dilemma here because it is definitely the best video game, like pound for pound, inch for inch, that came out last year. The scientist in me is like, there's nothing that good. There's stuff in there that's going to be scrutinized for decades, right?
Yeah.
Not only that, it's starting to get haters. Something Breath of the Wild did not accomplish in 7 years. It did not accomplish a hater. And now this Take's got haters, right? In Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Shigeru Miyamoto himself, I know he didn't design the game, I just like saying it, everybody, it's fine. Shigeru Miyamoto himself hands you very early in the game a tool that can just call the Nintendo Switch's mama all sorts of names, right? This Ultra Hand thing. You can just bring the frame rate down to single digits.
Yeah.
And they just give it to you. And that is, I don't know any other word for it than guts. That is huge guts. That is like guts, like just marinated in the juices, marinated in the blood of 1 million 7 out of 10 video game developers, is what I would call this steak of a video game. Direction. So it is very open. If you follow the game's subliminal directions and directives, you will arrive at a specific dungeon first. For anyone listening, I'm sure a couple people listening to this have played this game. You ever hear about this one? You will arrive at the Rito dungeon, the bird people dungeon first. If you follow the game's very subtle messaging, it's pretty subtle. It's not super subtle. I believe that the beginning of the video game up to boots down in that Rito dungeon is pound for pound the best vertical slice in video game history. And I have a lot of scholarship to back this up. Trust me. It is the best holistically designed piece of video game that I think has ever existed. And that's saying something. I'm talking about single player, big scale action adventures. I'm not ranking it against anything else. But it's so good. So there's that. There's that. I don't want to put it at the top of this list because that just wouldn't be interesting.
I just wanted to say the thing.
Yeah.
I feel what you're saying, and that you may disagree with this assessment, but
I might not. That's the interesting part. So
everything that I liked about it, and I liked a lot about it, everything I liked about it, I already liked in Breath of the Wild, more or less.
Yeah. So I took a dump in the well I hadn't played all the way through Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And then I did. Like a month before Tears of the Kingdom came out, I played through Breath of the Wild. And then I moved right into Tears of the Kingdom. And that was such a bad thing to do. Oh, that was the wrong way to play it.
Yeah.
But Tears of the Kingdom feels like a Super Nintendo sequel, right? It was originally planned as DLC, which I find interesting. It feels like a Super Nintendo sequel where you're like in the same world, but there's some new stuff. And the new stuff, as you start picking and prodding at it, it's like, man, this new stuff is crazy. And then it's like, there's this Sky Kingdom that's all really geometrical Tetris shapes up in the sky that feels like you're on a grid, like a Zelda game top-down grid. There's this underground, which is its own whole giant Dark Souls city of a place. That's the size of the whole world. So it's playing with the ancient Zelda Two Worlds concept, the Link to the Past Dark World concept is in there. Where can they go with a sequel? I think having a time traveler, Two Worlds, and then having a vehicle that you own, something that you feel ownership over. That's what I would do.
I think that just to kind of answered the questions that people were asking me about my feelings about this, because I talked about I wanted to play it less and less the more I saw people making giant constructs out of the hand thingy.
Me too.
But they do a good job of trying not to force it on you too much, and it's good and bad the way they leave piles of junk around where you need to do stuff, because it sort of clutters up the environment.
The canon reason for that is the people are building, the end of the world has been averted and people are building houses and stuff. So it's like they do have a pretty nice canon excuse for, you haven't even been to the world yet. When you get down to the world, there are these outposts that just have a bunch of wooden planks and wheels lying around. And there's a sign that's like, it's the construction company from the first one. And they're like, feel free to use these. Aspiring carpenters.
But I did get a little stressed out, like jumping down from the place the first time and seeing all these little islands and being like, I got to visit all these.
Oh man,
I know that the idea was supposed to be like, I get to visit all these, but I got a little stressed out.
I engaged with approximately 8% of the game's brain matter in my first 40 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And then once I was like, I'm going to go to the sky on purpose to try to have fun there instead of going there accidentally. And I used one of the launchy towers, and I proceeded to have, I was telling my buddy Michael Kerwin this the other day, I proceeded to have about 7 full video games worth of fun in 2 hours. And it's like, man, they really are the best in the world over there. They're doing something in that basement in Nintendo that cannot be equaled elsewhere.
Certainly true.
But the reason I personally am not super goatyistic about it is I waited so long to play Breath of the Wild that Elden Ring kind of became my Breath of the Wild. Uh-huh. And I have my own sort of expectations. I see the tides turning. I know people are starting to hunger for a trad Zeld. They're starting to now. Mm-hmm. You see them popping up in your Twitch chat. I just kind of wish they'd make another one like Wind Waker, right? Like it's starting to happen. Eiji Aonuma's called those people Nimrods. He's called them idiots. Here he is. We have a voice sample. Idiot! That's Eiji Aonuma talking to people who have expressed concern that Nintendo's not going to make any regular Zeldas anymore. They're planning something big for the next one, probably. They said they're sticking with this sort of weird thing. But as far as just the out-and-out joyful promise of an open world game, married to these linear challenges and such, married to the old video game thing, taking into account all that is Minecraft and building in Fortnite or whatever. I didn't want to build stuff. You know what I say every time I open up a video game and there's a character creator? I say, why can't the video game developers, character designers, make a character for me, right?
Yeah, I
say the same thing of Tatke. I'm like, why can't the game designers make level geometry for me? And it's like, oh, well, because
But they also did.
Because they did, and also 4 minutes later, I'm having a real good time taking a dump on it. And I'm not usually the kind of person who's like, I'm going to take a dump on this game. But man, I solved this one, the fire dungeon in Tatke with the most knuckle-draggery behavior. I was like, let's do this. And then I'm just like brute forcing my way through it. And I'm like, dude, I guess this disgustingly owns. I guess this is the most you can't touch this. It's god-darn MC Hammer, dude.
It's a game that's made to be broken.
You can't god-darn touch this game. It's hilarious. They are huffing some fancy fumes. They got one huge hookah in the basement there. I don't know what it's got in it.
They call it the Octopath.
Vaporized 5-hour energy. It's got 8 tentacles popping out of it. Which eight of our designers will become supercharged today. There was a shrine where you have little minions that you can fuse guns to, or not guns, but like bladed weapons to. And there's an overwhelming number of enemies on a pyramid, and you're just sending off these little minions real time. It's just my buddy Oni Spumoni was saying they accidentally, probably without ever seeing Brutal Legend, just made everything about Brutal Legend work. In this one shrine out of 150, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there.
Those guys are nuts at Nintendo. I was like, what are they doing? Let them take as long as they want to make stuff. Just remember, before the game came out, people were so gauche in the Nintendo Direct comments. Release Botwood 2 trailer now, right? Let them take as long as they want. Their stuff is nuts. It doesn't make, it's bonkers. Lord, it's bonkers. They're bonkers over there. Anyway, that's the end of my story.
The only thing we have left to do on this episode is place this thing on this list.
Oh, Tatke. Zelda Tchotchke. I was calling it tchotchke. I was calling it tater tot. I was calling it TikTok. I was calling Zelda bratwurst, Zelda bottled water. Then I kind of settled into calling Zelda Tatke. Who cares what I call it now? I don't even it doesn't matter. That's not
where do you want to put it.
Well, I've got to remember my names for it before I do that. Zelda Tatke. I've been calling them tchotchke and bratwurst is what I call the two games.
I agree that it is better than a lot of these games, but do I feel like that means it's number one?
Well, my feeling is Baldur's Gate 3, it swept the GOTYs.
Yeah.
Right. It was winning a lot at all these things. It was Jeff Keighley's game of the year. I've said this before on a stream, and, we like to be prophetic here, don't we? People love to point out that I did design the Nintendo Switch before Nintendo announced it on this very podcast. Let's design the Switch 2 real quick. It's going to be the same thing. It's gonna have a bigger screen.
Same thing, more RAM.
Yeah, and it's Nintendo's for the first time not gonna try to make something completely bonkers to blow our minds.
Wow.
They're just gonna let us play Tatke at 60 FPS, right? And that's what I want. So there you go. I've just designed the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm also going to be prophetic and say when the third one of these comes out, owing to the 26-year-oldliness of the typical video game critic right now, who will be 32 years old when that comes out, a lot of the breathlessness regarding Tatke had something to do with memories of the beautiful time 6 years ago when I played Breath of the Wild, is what a lot of these critics, I could sense it, sleeping behind the prose, between the lines. When the third of these games comes out, the critics won't be as kind. And by then, maybe the critics won't, have jobs. Maybe they'll just all be AI at that point, which is going to be its own cup of insane. But it's going to be more of this. It'll be better. It'll be beautiful. It'll be incredible. But they're going to come down on it, and they're going to say, actually, Breath of the Wild wasn't that good. Have you read this article? And there's this huge thing written by AI with a bunch of AI-generated images of naked Zelda or whatever, kind of just indecently splashed throughout, people watching it on their Apple Vision Pro, crossing the Rubicon, as it were. Tatke is going to get beaten up by time in the future. I've seen this happen. It's been decades that I've reckoned with video games. It's gonna get beaten up. So in light of that, I think putting it above Baldur's Gate 3 would be my move.
Sounds good.
I would like to hear some justification for leaving Final Fantasy 16 at number 1.
It's funny.
It's very funny.
That's it. Good enough.
It's the most Bujing-esque video game that was released this year, I guess.
I've been wrestling with that thing being at the top of the list ever since I tried to put it there. And but then as soon as
it keeps being funny,
it's still funny. So that's okay.
I will say, okay, if you want to hear some justification, I can burn some off real quick. Number 1, it is the only game on this list that I hamburgered all the way through. Not counting Pseudo Regalia, which I also hamburgered through, but that was a 3-hour video game, two some hours. I ate this thing like a quarter pounder with cheese. I played the whole thing. I spent 70 hours and I 100%ed it, and I played it over 2 weeks.
It's kind of to the same point there. I had to play as many games as I could to a significant degree of completion so that I could talk about them. And then the first game that I went back to after I felt done with that was Final Fantasy 16.
Final Fantasy 16 more than any other Final Fantasies. Not quite as much as Final Fantasy 7 Remake, but it's the most Yakuza-like in terms of its structure as well.
Yeah, that's true.
It has a very pleasant, easy structure. There's some monster hunts you can do that are fun. It is real weird to leave this at number 1. It is really weird.
Yeah.
But also nobody else did it. I don't think it cracked the top 30 on let's see. What did Polygon.com do? I didn't look at Polygons.
I mean, if we're going for most 7 out of 10, that's it, I'd say.
That's true. That is our list of the best games of 2023. We'll publish the list in order on patreon.com/insertcredit and forums.insertcredit.com.
We have until some point on Monday to submit voice recordings saying, actually, no, it's not Final Fantasy 16. We have until midnight. We have until midnight on Sunday. How's that? To submit a voice recording going, wait, let's change it. So if that happened, you'll be hearing that right now. All right.
Okay. But barring that, next week, Tim and Brandon will be back to talk about all of the games that came out this previous calendar year that they have thoughts about that didn't have space for the list. That's kind of the thing we do. And you love it. You know you love it It's
You'll
your
love
favorite thing. I got to sign off. My blood sugar is at about -50. I'm Alex Jaffe.
Is that possible? I'm Tim Rogers.
I'm Brandon Sheffield. My blood sugar is at 12.
And hi-fi rush to the polls.
Insert Credit Show is a production of Insert Credit. This episode was hosted by Alex Jaffe and featured Frank Cifaldi, Tim Rogers, Brandon Sheffield, and Kris Graft. This episode was edited on time by me, Esper Quinn, with original music by Kurt Feldman. Thanks for listening.